You could have heard this episode 48 hours early on our Patreon, patreon.com/indieheadspodcast. By joining us for as low as $1 a month, you'll receive episodes early and gain access to our Discord server. All of our upcoming episodes will be up on our Patreon 48 hours before it hits our public podcast feeds. But if you're hearing this via our Patreon feed, we thank you so much for your support. We especially want to thank our Real Ones patrons, including Becca Etienne, Georgia Mikowski, Rihanna Cruz, Alan S., Josiah Duncan, Jenna LaFleur, Matt Cameron, Delaney Miller, Great in the Back of My Dragula, Pablo Escobar's Hippos, Jackson Christ, Alec Felder, Sandy Nemo, Jeremy Bowl, Alex Gershmanoff, I Like Books, Jonathan David, Sarah Moore, Max Kapazinski, Mark Barry, Aaron Hulsamer, Darian Fisher, Gayors420, Cal50, Chubby Checker x Big Bopper Erotic Fanfiction, Chris Wade, Jacqueline Kataga, Kevin John, Jake Wald, Eraser Red Baby, Rob Marino, Max, Dylan, Waffle113, Gavin490 Freak, and Maze Farms. To become a real one, consider supporting us for $5 a month on Patreon, where you'll receive a bonus episode every month and get a shout out at the top of the pod. Anyways, though, enjoy the episode. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Indieheads podcast. I'm your host, Matty at Movie and Prince. On Twitter, I am joined by Rose and Jackie, also my co-host on Best New Pod. But this is not Best New Pod. This is a mainline Indieheads podcast episode where we're actually doing the thing that the podcast is named after.
Used to be.
We're talking about indie music. We're talking, well, not all indie music, but a lot of indie music, as we're in a little Q2 catch up, as you know, we're past the second quarter of the year. And we're here to talk about some records that came out, some ones we liked, some ones we didn't like, some of the bigger ones, some small ones we want to shout out, which actually we're going to start off with that right away.
Exactly. We're getting right to the lightning round right away because we want to avoid the John Mulaney birthday sign sketch that we usually do, which is that whatever the first album is, we talk about for like 25 minutes, and then we immediately realize that the rest of the episode has to be rushed. So we're just going to get all of the stuff that everything that wasn't worthy of a main topic discussion, everything either because only one of us has thoughts on it or because it's a smaller release. We're gonna just power through those. And how much do we want to set per out release? You want to do?
I'm just gonna go until I'm done, which won't be long. Like that.
Gotcha. All right, I'll just do the same thing. I'll just try to power through it.
Okay.
Right, Rose, you're up to bat.
Okay, so first up, a new one from Rook. You know how it is. Dressy Core as usual. Ugly Death, No Redemption, Angel Curse, I Love You. Best title of the year. Let's just get that out of the way.
All caps. Very important to know.
This is the Rook album for me. She's put out stuff that I've always been like, yeah, I like this, but like I don't love it. You know. Mm-hmm. And this one just feels like so in line with my aesthetic taste, I guess. It's just like very trashy, crunk-core kind of stuff.
No, it's the best Ada solo album for sure. I would agree.
It's just so good and like so.
I like it better than the Black Dresses album, which I think we might get to later. But
yeah. Well, that was January, wasn't it?
Oh yes.
We talked about that last quarter.
We did. It's true.
But yeah, it's super slick, super neat, just very fun. Next up, my current favorite of the year, because this year is just so garbage that like something simply just having really good riffs can get my top spot.
You're wrong, but it's okay.
Listen,
this music here is good. I have literally like 100 albums that I like. Not even like, oh, this is pretty good.
I'm like scraping for like 70 right now. It's bad.
But we're also not normal. That's the other thing.
Say we are internet freaks and we're not normal.
Yeah,
okay?
of course. But anyway,
anytime Wilfordville shames me for doing a 5x5 for the week, I'm like, you're right. You're right to do that, Wilfordville.
It's more Gavin than Will.
Yeah,
Gavin has called anyone who does more like again. It's like 3x3s for the week, 5 hours of the month. If you do anything more for the week. Or for the month, you're a perv, which is not exactly. Which again, it's a take where it's like I don't disagree.
I most certainly am. I just want to put that on the record. I want to put that on the record where an employer can hear it.
Pro pervert podcast, the Indieheads. Anyways, Rose, continue.
Anyways, your next record, Rose.
Okay,
Gospel.
so Gospel, the loser, Gospel, really sick band that I got into like earlier this year, and then like so they are a combination of scrams and prog, which are like the two biggest dork genres imaginable. And so of course, like as soon as I got into them earlier this year, like a couple weeks after, they uploaded a single to their Bandcamp page, and they're just like, "Oh yeah, guys, we were putting out our first album in like I don't know, like 17 years. You cool with that?" And it's so good. It's so good. Just imagine like a guy with like the world's worst Isaac Brock impression, just like yelping his guts out over like insane keyboard solos. And just like some of the tightest drums you ever heard. It's just sick. There's no other way to describe it. You got to put on Gospel the Loser, real good. Next up, EP of the year, Home is Where Meet the Record Setter, Dissection Lesson. Just two really good trans scrammed bands. Just just again, it's like one of those things where I'm just like, I can't really recommend it off of any particular thing. It's just like you gotta listen to it. You gotta listen to it. Like if you hear the word scrams and you're like, oh yeah, this is my freak shit. This is like, just go ahead and go get it. Yeah, Claire Rousay, Everything Perfect is Already Here. Really, really just sweet Bandcamp ambient. This is like a genre I'm making up in my own head, which is just like the very mumbly kind of ambient music that like you can pick out of a lineup.
It's very much the Claire Rousay is very much emblematic of kind of a particular strain of Bandcamp ambient. I would say most ambient music is Bandcamp ambient in some way.
But like I find it to be a particular flavor that I can.
I would describe it as shit poster ambient. Is how I would describe it.
You're almost certainly right there.
Shouts out to Bandcamp ambient columnist Ted Davis, our friend and now former coworker, sadly. For me and Jack.
Next one, no particular artist. It is a various artist compilation. It is called Through the Soil 2. You know me as a notorious hater of shoegaze and other such things on here, but this is pretty good and kind of just like who's who and like kind of shoegaze, twangy indie stuff. Like there's some really good bands on here, like MJ Lenderman and Faye Webster, Julian Baker. Who else is on there?
Floaty.
Paranul. Yeah, it's just like a whole bunch of names there.
Rat
a lot
Boys,
of really good, a lot of really good, just fuzzy music. And like I figured,
Dummy is on there.
Yeah,
Dummy.
I figured like 2 hours of just good fuzzy music was what I needed in my day, and like this is very good. Like everyone is bringing their A game to the comp, which usually is not the case with like this kind of thing, where I'm just like, just throw away a song for charity,
Totally.
Yeah, it's just super chill. And finally, 700 Bliss, Nothing to Declare. More Mother, just really, she is like on a roll this year. Like I thought Brass was pretty good, and that was like a solid record. I thought Black Encyclopedia Air was whatever, but like the two records she's released this year with 700 Bliss and her solo album, oh my god, those are both like really good. This is like some really good like kind of deconstructed rap stuff, like super ambient, crazy electronic beats. Just really nice, really nice. And that's all I got.
Well then, I will take over from there for my little lightning round. First up, I've got the new Dean Blunt EP, Freestyles SS22. It's Dean Blunt, you know how it is. Although I think this is a very interesting little EP. Throughout the years, pretty much like since he went solo after Hype Williams, he's done these sort of like random like freestyles between records, and these are not freestyles in like the traditional rap sense. These are just like literally just like, okay, I'm putting together the song very quickly and like it's very short. Just like here's some slivers of an idea. Like, okay, here's like this random Queens of the Stone Age cover where I'm kind of messing with like these MIDI strings that I was using on like the Redeemer. Like, hey, here's like a PJ Harvey cover. Just like, hey, here's this like short little loop that I made, and I'm gonna try to sing over it real quickly. It's very short. Real again, this is one that even for like the non Dean Blunt devotees, I think it's like if you like the Redeemer, you like black metal, this is definitely worth a listen. Just to kind of hear some like early ideas and see how they eventually kind of form fully on like future Dean Blunt records. Again, it's Dean Blunt. It's for the sickos. But after that, I have this new Kristine Leschper album, The Opening or Closing of a Door. Kristine Leschper being the former frontwoman of Mothers, now basically turning Mothers into a full-on solo project under her own name. This is very good, kind of chambery Baroque pop, very, very singular. Definitely almost a complete 180 from the last Mothers record. Again, seemingly, again, has pretty much done 180s on almost all of her records. And again, really appreciate that. Just a very fun Baroque pop record. If you like Kate Bush, especially after Stranger Things, which she got a resurgence, give this one a go. And then after that, the new My Idea record, Cry MFer. This is the duo of Palberta's,
Lily
it's Nate.
Konigsberg.
Thank you. From Palberta and Nate from Water From Your Eyes. I've not gotten into Palberta or Lily solo music, but I did really enjoy the Water From Your Eyes record from last year.
Her solo
and
record from last year is pretty solid.
I've heard. I gotta get on it. This again, just a very fun kind of bedroom pop album.
This record's pretty sick. I got in like in advance. I was like, oh yeah, this is neat.
I've gotten into like one song per every Lily Konigsberg thing. Like there was one song on the Palberta album from last year that I really, really love. No Way. That song is like an incredible single, but then I didn't really get into the rest of it. And like the same thing happened with the solo record. So I'll probably give this one some real time this year. I keep seeing people bring up this one, the Cry MFer album.
Title track is great. Breathe You is a song that really should not work, but is really, really good. And it's just open vulnerability. Like a song with like those lyrics should not work, but like it somehow does. Again, really good little indie bedroom pop record. And then next up, this is a shout out to my friend Jake. His band Ruby Sparks has a new EP called California Honey. Very good indie rock. If you like the OC, the television show, and you like indie rock, you want those kind of two feelings, those two vibes combined. Hey, good record here. And then this next one, we've discussed this concept, Jackie and I, between some friends, of there are some artists out there that pretty much everyone else just considers to be like kind of mid, but for us, the mid be hitting.
Sometimes the mid be hitting, exactly.
Sometimes the mid be hitting, and this new Daywave album, that's it for me. I've not really been too into his previous music. It's a little too like bedroomy Spotify core, but I think this hits like the right mix of like slightly higher production values mixed in with like kind of Spotify core that I can get more into, and just like good fun songwriting. It's a nice breezy summer listen. It's pretty good. Give it a go.
Also, Matty, it's not just that like this is the same concept. It's literally that Daywave is the Four Dudes version of Hazel English, which is the exact artist that I was talking about in terms of the mid be hitting.
Okay, this is true.
Because Hazel English is featured on the last song on the Daywave album, and the new Hazel English EP is the perfect example of like, is there anything remotely special about it? No. Does it make my monkey brain go clap, clap, clap? Yes, it does.
Wait, with every one of these non-existent names you two keep mentioning, my eyes keep glazing further over in the wallpaper. I feel my brain like.
To use Max's expression, Hazel English is not beating the wallpaper indie allegations, but sometimes wallpaper indie is good.
And also to connect these two,
you know the little monkey with the symbols, like that's what's going on in my brain right now.
Me too, but just like in a good way.
That's fine. And also to connect those two dots further, Daywave did produce the most recent Hazel English EP.
Exactly.
And has produced a number of her stuff in the past. So, hey, it's good. Again, I like it. It's pretty fun. Nice breezy listen. And then last one, this is not a 2022 record, but this is a reissue of the Strange Ranger mixtape from last year, No Light in Heaven. They signed to Fire Talk. Fire Talk is reissuing the album. It's already out digitally. New track on there called Raver Explanation. That's pretty decent, although it's kind of weird that it's like kind of put like right in the middle of the track list. It kind of fucks up the flow a little bit, but hey, was my album of the year last year. If you've not already checked it out, hey, here's more reason to give it a listen. It's got the Fire Talk seal of approval, and we'll be talking about another Fire Talk band later on in the episode because I'm seeing them live literally right after we finish recording this podcast.
Hell yeah.
So,
all right,
that's it for me. Jackie,
Matty has a concert to make it to, and I literally kept adding songs to this list like while we were doing this.
Jackie.
So I'm just gonna breeze through these really quickly. These are arranged from like
quick.
The first of these lists are like these are actually very high on my album of the year list. It's just that no one else here cares about them, and then the bottom is like just mentioning these real quick. Anyways. Starting off, Maria BC, Hyaline. This record is awesome. Everything that it was told to me about it via the reviews I read when it came out immediately made me go like, oh, this is going to be Jackie Core. And it was. It's kind of like Grouper, like similar sort of like very moody, atmospheric sort of songscape stuff. But the singing and songwriting style is much more clear and much more kind of Julia Holter-y, where it feels like she's kind of like dancing over the top of these kind of placid instrumentals. It kind of reminds me of someone like ice skating is what I always think about when I'm listening to it. But it's just a really great record. There's like great transitions throughout it. It's really well sequenced and paced, and just immaculate mood from start to finish. Really great, like cloudy day music. I'm gonna butcher this name so bad, but Hitsujibungaku. It's all one word. It's very long. I have to look it up every single time how to spell it. It's never easy for me. But their album is called Our Hope, and this is a Japanese band that basically their style is like very straightforward J-pop, but blended with very fuzzy indie rock. Think like Ives, think like Hazel English, sort of, but like very upbeat, really great drumming, really, really, really great fucking pop songwriting, and just like ideal, like Matty was talking about with the Daywave album. Like, put this album on if you're driving during the summertime, you're gonna have a great fucking time with it. Horsegirl, versions of modern performance. I am one of the many people joining the Horsegirl hype train, not just because I am in fact a Horsegirl myself, but also because this band, their list of influences is like a Jackie Core handbook, essentially. They pull from all the kinds of 90s indie rock that I love, particularly like some kind of Interpol-y, Sonic Youth-y type stuff that's just really, really good. And the track Billy is a fucking banger of a song. There's a lot of great songs on here, great little interludes too. Just like an unreasonably good album for a bunch of 17-year-olds to make. Makes me angry. Duster came back. There's a new Duster album, and it was a earth-shattering event for a specific type of guy that includes me. And also but like for everyone else, no one really noticed that there was a new Duster album. But there was a new Duster album, and it's really good. It continues the trend of his kind of post-reunion albums in that it sounds a little less like rocky and has more kind of reminds me of Shlomo's like work that has guitars in it, is how I would describe it. Really good stuff. If you like Duster, you'll probably like this. If you don't like Duster, you probably won't like this. New Zola Jesus album, Archon. Zola Jesus is back. You can go read my Paste magazine article about my top 10 favorite Zola Jesus songs. That's a better use of your time than listening to me ramble about this new album, which is really good, not great, not quite as good as Okovi, but like incredibly solid, and also pushes her sound in new directions that has me excited for the future of Zola Jesus' music. Sown is a fucking ripper. Rayvn Lenae put out an album called Hypnos, got best new music, got a lot of hype around it. I was very excited for a Rayvn Lenae album a long time ago when the Sticky EP came out, because Sticky is like one of the best songs of the last decade, just like a perfect little pop R&B Steve Lacy joint. And even though I was a little underwhelmed by the album at first because it's a lot more subdued than the sound of that EP was, like it's a little less upbeat, but it's really grown on me over time. She just has like a gorgeous, gorgeous voice and does some very kind of Janet Jackson, Erykah Badu type R&B music that just fucking rules. Like, it's just so good. Highly recommend it. Kathyrn Joseph, for those of you who are the wrong, this is like a very underrated singer-songwritery project. This woman got really notable a couple of years ago because she wrote this album that was essentially about the death of her son. That was like this very, very personal record that her artist pseudonym, the Joseph of Kathyrn Joseph, is the name of her son. And she took it on as the second half of her pseudonym, which I think is very sweet. And this record is like less intensely grief focused in that it is not like as literal as the last album was. Like, it's not like telling you very specific stories. It's very metaphorical, but the album is called For Those of You Who Are the Wronged, and it very much is an album about trauma, but it's like looking outward rather than at herself. It's about a bunch of people in her life. Like, it's very kind of, not to bring this motherfucker up, but very Benji-esque in the kind of, but it's not like Benji in that she's not telling you the stories of what happened to these other people in her life. It's all very kind of abstract. And it's a very, very intimate album. It's literally just her voice and like gently played keys for the entire time. It's very intense, but very, very cathartic and beautiful. And I love it. Tyler Heaven, this shout out to Eric from Endless Scroll who put me onto this. This is a small Pittsburgh artist that I had never heard of before. And they put out an album called Darkness on the Edge of the Parking Lot that is fucking fantastic. It's very kind of Elliott Smithy, Alex G type folk music, but with like a little bit of like shoegaze fuzz and kind of atmosphere to it. He's got kind of an acquired taste voice. If you like Mo Troper, you'll probably like Tyler Heaven, but if that kind of vocal style is not your thing, you might struggle with it. But I really, really highly recommend it. It's a very underheard record from this year. Darkness on the Edge of the Parking Lot is what it's called. And they announced they announced the album's title on the very first track, and we had an incredibly funny moment in the office yesterday when I was playing the intro track, which at the very end of the intro track, like a voice calmly says, "You are now listening to Tyler Heaven, Darkness on the Edge of the Parking Lot." And right before that happened, Chris asked me like, "Hey, what's this album called?" And I just didn't say anything, and I looked at him, and then the album played the like title drop essentially, and it was really, really funny. But yeah, that album is great. You should check it out. Last couple, running through these really quick. The Range put out another album. It's another The Range album. It's really, really good. If you liked Potential, you will like this new one. Two Shell, Icons, these cheeky British motherfuckers. They did it. They did the thing.
It's very fun. I like British guys who were pretending to be aliens. It's my favorite genre of bleep bloops, or at least one of them.
Yes, exactly, Rose. I'm so glad to have indoctrinated you into the British people with bad haircuts that think they're robots mindset.
These guys in particular are like some of the most interested I've been in a while. Where it's just like, oh wow, this EP kind of riffs.
Yeah, no, the production is, they've managed, this EP is really the moment where they fully transcend like their very obvious influences, namely like Joy Orbison and like some of the kind of similar like Pearson sound, and a lot of the Hessel audio stuff is obviously like a huge jumping off point for them. But this EP is really them being like, okay, here's what our signature kind of thing is, and it's a cool thing. I'm really into it.
It's really cool. If you like the video game Portal, you're probably going to be very annoyed because you're going to hear like dozens of fucking voice clips.
Yes, the whole album is stitched together with Portal-esque computer voice clips that are pretty cheeky and fun. Anyways, that's the Two Shell EP. Florence and the Machine, Dance Fever. All I will say about this is that this eats the Arcade Fire's album for lunch at being an Arcade Fire album. Florence and the Machine never lost. This is not as good as the last album, but still very good. Ron Trent, What Do Stars Say to You? This is like a very loungy, relaxed house record. If you want like a house record that's like very classy and more in the kind of jazz world than it really is in the dance music world, this is a great record for you. It has a great feature from Krugeben, aka Sweet Licks. Highly recommend. And last but not least, Will Lister put out this little mixtape. I don't know what to call it. It's called Ode to Habit, and it's like a 17-minute long album of these like 2-minute long sketches that are all really fucking interesting and really abstract, but also kind of beat like. He's like an electronic producer who does more club oriented stuff, but this is way more abstract. If you liked the Joy Orbison mixtape last year, you should check this out. It's really fucking cool. Anyways, that's it. We're done. Also, shout out to Pretty Bitter, former guest of the podcast. They put out an album called Hinges that is some really fucking great indie pop if you want some of that in your life.
There we go. Alrighty.
Okay. Got through all of it. Boom. Now we only have like 20 more albums to talk about.
Okay.
Oh boy. Let's see. Our first one up to bat is the new Bartees Strange album, Farm to Table.
I feel like us talking about this for an extended period of time constitutes more marketing than 4AD managed for this record.
Hey, to be fair, they actually did a good job on the press rollout this time. However, we can get into how much.
Are you saying that post they made that's like things are looking real strange this Friday is good marketing? I don't want to just spend.
I don't want to make this entire discussion about talking.
I know, no, don't worry. I just wanted to get it up front.
That fucking killed me just because we had been talking about 480 for weeks, and then they do that post, and it just was like it felt like they were baiting me. Is what it felt
really
like.
It felt like I was just like, really, guys, really.
I don't have a lot of thoughts on the Bartees album. I'll just kind of lay them on the table.
I have a good number.
I'll let you go last, Rose, because I know you have a lot of thoughts on this. I like this album more than the reception to this album. Well, there have been waves to the reception to this album. I kind of stayed out the first couple of weeks, partly as an intentional choice, because whenever there's an album that feels like it's getting really discoursey before I've even heard it or before most people have even heard it, those are the albums I like to step away from and come back to in like 2 or 3 weeks so I can just listen like without all the hoopla around it. And I was glad I did that with Bartees because I think I liked this record more than I would have if I had gone into it with the kind of this is a bit of a disappointment expectations that were clouding around it after it had really positive lead up to the album, in which basically every indie rock music journalist dropped their Bartees Strange has arrived profile. And there are a lot of people like myself that have pointed out that it kind of feels like these profiles were kind of scheduled to happen before the critics heard this album, and that they were just sort of like, okay, he signed to a big label, he had a really solid first album, this is his like I'm arriving Bartees Strange moment, and he's a really talented artist. So like I don't think they were wrong to do that. I don't think they were wrong to tap him for this.
If any guy from this like current generation of new guys came in that like needs to be courted, I think this is
100%. Yeah, I totally think they were right to put the backing behind him, but it's just the record itself is a little bit confused. I would not call it bad by any stretch of the imagination. I think that people that are like declaring sophomore slump or like this is the most overrated whatever, like I think this is a very solid record with a lot of parts of it I really like, but the parts where it's really clicking are like pretty fleeting, and then it will like meander into a zone where I'm just kind of like, why are you here? And I think like a lot of the kind of very straightforward Bartees stuff works pretty well, and a lot of the more introspective stuff worked better than I was expecting. Like a lot of the quieter, slow songs worked better than I expected. But it just doesn't.
Tours. He's in his Adrian Linker bag. I'm willing to say it.
Tours is very good. I really like, and then I think Tours goes really well into Hold the Line. But I think my main critique is that when I got to Escape the Circus, and you get to the end of that song and he finally freaks it on the guitars, I was like, why is it taking until track 8 on this album to really freak it on the guitar? Like Heavy Heart has like pretty good guitars on it, but it's not like a banger in the way that the very end, and it's so brief too. It's like the very end of Escape the Circus, he gives you just like a little tease of like how exciting this record could be the whole way through, and it was like, okay, back to the kind of meandering stuff, and we'll have the cosigns discourse last, because I think that's going to be the most contentious part of it.
I'll get into my take before Matty starts bashing.
All I'll say is that it starts off pretty solid with Heavy Heart and Wretched, which are two like very solid singles that I like a lot, and I think it recuperates the momentum toward the end, but just the middle section of this record just feels like it's a bunch of ideas in search of a record rather than it is a record that and I think that doesn't mean that like I want him to pick a genre lane. I like the way that he blends genres and transcends genres. That's like the best part about his music. But like I just feel like there aren't a lot of like capital S songs here as much as there are kind of like stray ideas going in one direction or another.
I do think to an extent that like he is extremely toned down the like flip-flopping, because like Live Forever was like, oh my god, that record was it was all like good songs, but like it was like a headache to put it together. Like there's no feasible way to sequence that, because like
it was boomeranging from one style to another.
Yeah, exactly. And like then it just ends suddenly on like this weird like Justin Vernon run where you're just like, what? Like it doesn't feel like it has proper closure. It's just like we're getting quiet now and then we're leaving. Okay. And this one, I think this is like not necessarily the record I wanted him to make, but the one he needed to make. If that makes sense.
I think that's
like,
fair.
Yeah, I see that take.
Yeah, like
that's very fair.
I do feel that this leans a little bit more into like his pop writing tendencies, and that's a good thing because I think he's really good at it when he's on. Like as you mentioned, that opening run, I think like everything up through Hold the Line is like pretty much what I wanted out of him. Like Mulholland Drive especially is just like such a perfect.
That's one of the better tracks on the record. I would say
that is like especially just such a like perfect little like pop tune, like that part where it's like getting into the last iteration of the chorus and like those little guitars are darting around. It's just like he is so good at the sonic details, and I notice that every time with stuff. I'm just like, this is perfect. It's just the like middle back end like from a. We were only close for like 2 weeks to Black Gold, a little whatever. Like Escape the Circus has the guitar ending, but I can't tell you anything else about that song. But like otherwise, like very solid record. Like I think the sequencing is good, and I think Cosigns is very good, and like specifically because like it gets into.
Okay, God, I didn't even get my fucking takes in. Jesus,
go ahead.
Let me iterate first. So this is like very much one of those like sophomore like. Oh yeah, I guess I'm popular now albums. Like, you know, we talked about a dozen of those. Like, we talked about that Billie Eilish record last year that I went absolutely gaga over. Like, and I think this one also does it really well. You know, this is like somebody who's genuinely struggling with like, oh, I've kind of just failed at everything for most of my life, and now suddenly it's like, oh, I'm actually kind of making hits here. And like, Cosigns is a song where he's just like trying not to let it get to his ego, and you know, he's just like, he's talking trash even though he's like, I know this is a stupid thing to do. And like, I think being willfully stupid for the sake of like making a point about yourself is at least somewhat interesting, even if the lyrics are a little trashy. Of being like, yeah, I'm hanging out with Justin Byrne.
I don't think the lyrics are a little trashy. I think if he knew this was stupid, he would not have done it, because this is literally one of the most embarrassing songs I've ever heard from a rising indie rock star. Like, truly, if Will Toledo did this, he would have been bullied out of a career. Like, straight up.
Like, hang on a minute.
If Will Toledo wrote and recorded the exact same song with the same lines, he would be ridden at, his career would be over.
You know where the song would be on a Will Toledo record? It would be on a One Tray Danger record, not this. Let me tell you.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I'm saying, is that he shouldn't have done One Tray Danger mode. Go ahead, Matt, you share.
Okay.
You go.
Cosigns is that with that song in particular, he is so close to having like the right amount of swag to be able to pull that song off.
Exactly. Like, I think he's got it.
But like, for which again, that's your take. Again, he's so dangerously close to me, but it's enough so we're just like, this isn't bad, but it's like, you need to brag about this stuff. It just feels like, oh shit, like I need to have like a big genre turn on my record. So hey, here's this like braggadocious kind of rap song. Although the ending of Cosigns is great, I think the song it does build to something really good. But the journey to get there is rough for me.
At the very least, none of you have a take neither of you have a take that angers me as much as the drummer from Dummy, who said like Wretched sounds like a bad Katy Perry song. I'm just like, what are you talking about?
That's just a very dumb take. But
I've been thinking about it for weeks. Like, somebody showed me.
Hang on, I gotta. Yeah, let me investigate this. Let me investigate.
But while you do, I'm just gonna say that, like, I am not against the idea of people doing like very short-sighted shit talking or being purposefully stupid, but I think that's kind of a galaxy brain way of trying to explain this song that I just don't think works, because I think the song that I feel like it's trying to be in a short form is Kanye West's Last Call, where he's basically like, as my career is rising, I'm going to tell you the story of my career rising in a way that, and all the people that I've run into along the way, in a way that should be cocky and obnoxious, but comes across as like undeniably charming. And there is nothing undeniable about the song. It is strained, it is forced, it is corny as all fuck. I genuinely hate this song. I think it's horrible. I never want to hear it again.
I just
all right. Yeah, I'm waiting for this.
I sent the post, by the way.
Hang on. Let me see what Dummy said. Let's see.
I mean, there is a Dummy. I'll tell you that.
Saying Katy Perry song just to describe like a pop rock song is very like it's very like 2011, like turn this Justin Bieber shit off. You know what I mean?
Okay, hang on. Okay, I think they're completely wrong on this. It's like I can't even see it. Although Wretched, again, I was trying to figure out what Wretched reminded me of, because I did listen to this album today to prepare for this episode, and it's just a bad ripoff of Deja Vu from the last record. Like, it just seems like it's like it's got the same. Oh. It's whatever song, like I get the deja vu.
No, Matty, the joke is that.
God, I think he intentionally riffed on the vocal line from that one. Like that was a very intentional choice. I don't think he was trying to rip.
Well, okay. I mean, still, but that's like goes back to the cosigns. It's just like, just because something's intentional doesn't mean it works. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's a case where it's like, okay, you're reminding me of a better record, essentially. Which again, I haven't even got going yet. This is a very mid record. I'm not mad about it being that mid, but I
like it. But I honestly, like, the record I want out of him is like the one where he just fully leans into the weirdo stuff.
That's the thing. I think it's the case where he's playing it safe, and I completely understand why you want to play it safe on this record. Like, you just signed to a big label, like. You play it safe on this one, and maybe on the next one you can start doing the more freak shit. Totally understandable.
You don't want to
but it's like, dude, like I don't. But at the same time, it's just like it's clear from Live Forever. It's like this dude is clearly very, very good. And he can do some really interesting stuff. Obviously, like what made Live Forever so good was that it was this very like very genre bending record that still felt very cohesive at the same time. I'm not going to be as mean on this record as like me and Jackie's coworker Luke, or friend of the show, Luke Phillips, where he's like, okay, here's this guy who does this like really incredible stuff. Half these songs are like acoustic songs, and it's just like it's boring. It's like at best there's some stuff on here that's really good, but the best song of this record does not touch like the worst stuff on Live Forever.
I disagree.
It's a very mid album to me. I'm not, again, I even if I sound kind of mad about it, I'm not too mad about it, but it's really this case where it's like, hey, you better have something cooking really quickly, because again, this is a case where we are all saying, we're all expecting, okay, this is not going to kill his career because it's just good enough to skirt him by for now. But that's for like music critics and like maybe some fans. But for me, it's like, dude, you gotta like, this makes me a lot less interested to hear the next Bartees Strange record, where it's just like, okay, like this is like your big like label debut, and like this is what you cook up. Like I know you can do better, and hopefully
I mean, it's a sophomore album. He only took like 2 years away. He'll be back.
I mean, yeah, he'll be back.
I'm not worried about this.
He seems to be a prolific guy, which is he's got his hands in a lot of pots. It's just I know he can do. I'm not mad. I'm disappointed. Is my end statement on this record. I know he can do better. I want him to do better.
Well, now we get to go to the new indie darling.
Actually, yes, we get to go to the one who remembered to make the songs good.
Yes. Oh boy. Our next record is MJ Lenderman's Boat Songs.
I've been beating the drum, folks. I've been beating the drum. I've been saying out here. I've been saying you gotta get on this Wednesday stuff, because like
the Wednesday Extended Universe took so many W's this year after last year.
We are truly living in the Wednesday essence, if I say so myself. Like, oh my god, Twin Plagues, classic. Mowing the leaves instead of piling up. Hitmaker right there. Boat Songs. Oh, somehow this is the one that like broke big. Like, I'm very shocked that of all the records, it was this one, even though I get it to an extent, like, because MJ is like such a unique personality among songwriters right now. I'm just kind of like, yeah, sure, dude, do whatever you want.
I think that, like, for me especially, it's so funny how quickly it flipped, where coming out of the Wednesday album last year, going into the Covers album, I was very excited about the Covers album and I enjoyed it immediately. But I was like, it's interesting listening to MJ kind of sing, because I hadn't listened to any of his solo stuff. And I was like,
I dabbled a little bit.
Exactly. So it was like, okay, now I'm getting used to this guy too. And his cover of the Drive By Trucker song is so good.
Yeah, he is really just belting on that Women Without Whiskey cover.
Oh, it's beautiful. And so after that, I was like, okay, I'm actually excited to check out like solo MJ Lenderman, even as I am very non-country pilled for the most part. Although I'm getting there, slowly but surely. Every day I get a little closer to the yeehaw pill. But this album is just fucking great. There's just like 4 or 5 or 6 songs on here that are just like 5-star indie rock tunes. Like,
I think
You Are Every Girl to Me is probably my favorite on the album, but Hangover Game is also fucking perfect. Like,
I would also list You Have Bought Yourself a Boat, TLC Cage Match.
The one that got Tasted Just Like a Cost, the one that got the best new track. Yeah.
Like this going back to the previous guy, this reminds me of the same issues I had with like the Bartees Strange record, where it's just like it's got a lot of really great songs, but like it doesn't know how to sequence itself at all. And
I disagree, but that's
listen. You Are Every Girl to Me, Tastes Just Like a Cost, Six Flags is like a baffling ending point. Like I don't know why it chooses that way to end, because it does not feel remotely cohesive to me. But like I think all of those songs are good. I think like 2 of those last 3 are absolutely stellar. I just wish this record, had a better way to tie its ideas together. And I think if he gets a big indie label budget, because like he almost certainly is going to, somebody's going to snatch him up. Like he is going to make the one, but like right now it's like he is severely leveled up. Like his earlier stuff is all like way more lo-fi than this, and I think the songwriting was like in and out there, but like this, like he has clearly found his specific place, which is like Will for Thrill described it as the college football album of the year, which I think is really just correct on so many levels. Like he's singing about like Michael Jordan's flu game and like seeing Dan Marino.
The lyric of the year, I can't believe it's taken us this long to say it. Jackass is funny.
Jackass is funny.
Jackass is funny. Like it's so beautiful. He's just found this record of just being. He's found the personality, which is literally just being some guy.
But like, I do think that like that is beyond just it being like, oh, he's got like clever references and whatever. Like it genuinely, like you, Matty, I think you were the one that said it. Like it feels like having a conversation with your friend in the most like beautiful way, and he finds a way to make these anecdotes feel really poignant. Like the best example being Hangover Game, where it's like you're just like, why is he singing a song about Michael Jordan? Like, what's the point of this song? And then the moment, in literally one line, all he has to say is, I love drinking too. And you're like, God damn it, now this whole song that was just about
I get
stuff,
it, dude. I love drinking too.
No, literally, like it all of a sudden creates this like
and like it's just like I as somebody who has lived in the Carolinas my entire life, I've met like a dozen MJ Lendermans in my life, and I'm just like, yeah, I get this type of guy completely, and I this is like the ideal version of this type of guy, you know. Like I listened to You Have Bought Yourself a Boat, and he's talking about like his jerk neighbors like screaming in the backyard because they're just, and he's just like sitting there drunk. It's just like, yeah, I know this. This guy rocks so hard.
Yeah, sounds good.
Dude's rock album of the year for sure.
Definitely. I didn't get to jump in because a work problem. I want a redacted a client that we work with. Anyways, this is a great record. I liked the Wednesday album from last year, but I wasn't like all the way in. This seems to be a lot more up my speed. Of like it feels like, you know, of course, I think in 2016, you know, here's the thing. I'm gonna, and well, I guess not. It was more 2017. I'm gonna admit this to everybody. I was a big Pine Grove fan in 2017. I loved Pine Grove very dearly, and once stuff came out about them, it kind of killed my interest. Like even when like stuff kind of, even as more stuff has come forward, it's just like I was not gonna be into this band anyways. This just kind of sped up the process. This feels like the evolution of Pine Grove that is more attuned to like what I'm like these days. Like this feels like a record made for me. It's like, again, as Jackie was saying, I'm not sure if I said it or someone else said it. Just like this album feels like a fun conversation you're having with a friend. Just like it's dude's rock album of the year. Like it's great. If you're into alt, like again, if you like, you know, you're kind of your indie rock alt country shit, this is the album for you. Like it's just
every person on planet Earth has made this comparison, but if you like Jason Molina, this is your cue here.
Yes, I mean, as someone who just literally got into songs, my very first, I had the reverse where I was like, "Fuck, this dude sounds like MJ Lenderman," the only person who thought that on planet Earth.
But yeah, like. You gotta get on the Wednesday train. It's so important because like when they drop their next one and when MJ.
Although I will say, I do think like knowing you, Matty, and your kind of taste in shoegazy stuff, I think that it helps that like the Wednesday album is like more kind of sludgy and feels kind of like slower for the most. There are a couple like bangers on the Wednesday album, but like
100%. But it is mostly like
it's more wallowing, where this record has a kind of forward momentum to it that really helps it.
Yeah, this is like a nice stroll, whereas that is like just kind of, you know, laying back in itself.
That one's stuck in a ditch, whereas this one does feel like it's cruising on the highway. Also, important to note, Matty, that they had while this album was being recorded, they had a setup where they would project on the wall behind them. They would project college football games and wrestling matches.
That's hell yeah, baby. Also, shouts out to SCV. SCV is a very underrated track on the record. I love that song. It's very like nice, like little like noise rock diversion for the album.
Matty,
it's
this
great.
Is why I think you would really I think you would really enjoy Wednesday if you gave them some more time, because that is like the most.
I did go back to Twin Plagues after I ended up like really loving this record. So I definitely enjoy Twin Plagues a little more. I still need to check out the Covers record from this year.
That's also really
the Covers record is so good, and like I finally come around on that first album, which is I believe titled "I Was Trying to Describe You to Someone."
Yes,
like that record is like their most like kind of like slow. I don't want to say slowcore, but like really just slow shoegazy. Like just vibes more.
I
than
also say,
anything.
speaking of slower songs and underrated songs, I really love Toontown. I think Toontown is a great
Toontown's
one.
good. That's one of the more twangy ones that I like.
Definitely.
Anything where he turns
That's the most songs Oh-Hi-E. I would
anytime he
say.
turns up the yeehaw dial a little bit, I'm just like, yeah, like, especially You Have Bought Yourself a Boat, which either that or You Are Every Girl to me is probably my favorite. I just really love how peppy that one is.
I think Your Every Girl is like the song, although I think Hangover Game is like such a perfect like thesis statement of the whole record that it's just like one of the best album openers of the year. Because like you just have to listen to 2 minutes and 16 seconds and you're like, I understand this guy. I understand what this whole album is going to sound
just like
like.
me.
Wow. Anyways, that's all I have to say about it. Very good. Go check it out.
Yeah, cool dude. I really do hope that both him and Wednesday get signed to like, a big indie label, because I am like so invested in.
Yeah, can we? We do have like some inside info on that.
We can't.
I'm not sure how much we can divulge.
Let's
Probably can't say.
Probably
can't say. But let's just say our speculations. We are speculating for good reason. Let's just say
MJ stock's going up.
Stocks are high again. It's the best music, the best new music bump. It is still real for people in the industry. Let's just say that. But this next record, this new Let's Eat Grandma record, 2 Ribbons. This definitely holds the record this year for one of the longest fucking album cycles that I can recall.
Yeah, it's
not as long as the Ithaca album.
still not as long as I'm trying to think what was the thing that was longer. There was like one just like
There's a 1975 of like notoriously long album cycles.
Oh yeah,
like go amounts way too far in
1975
advance.
cycle go for like a year and a half.
I mean,
almost a year.
The Let's See Grandma cycle went almost as long as the Big Thief cycle went, but at least with the Big Thief album, they had the excuse of there's 20 songs and we have a lot of singles to roll out. Whereas this is a 10-song album that had like an 8-month rollout, which again, this is kind of past the point now, but like labels, if there's a vinyl delay that's going to push the album back 4 months and you've already started the press campaign, just put the album out and let people pre-order the vinyl for later. They won't mind that it's not going to come for 3 months. They just want to hear the record now because you've already gone through the effort of like getting them a great Guardian profile and shit like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it was just a stupid decision. But it was worth.
Oh, wait, hang on. Sorry to interrupt. Because if I don't say this now, I'm gonna like shoot my brain out.
Go ahead.
Speaking of long album cycles, this fucking 10,000 Gex album cycle. What the fuck is going on with that?
Like no. They
literally
put out a post that was like, "Hey guys, this is coming out early 2022. It is July.
It's July. There was a fucking Pitchfork profile
this,
back in the fall last year.
Do you want to know my Galaxy Brain theory? The label put out Doritos and Fritos, and it didn't pop the way they wanted to, and neither did Me. And so they just told them, "All right, you guys are going back to the drawing board. These aren't viral hits the way that we expected you to be."
Literally, it is the
they're on Epic, right?
No. They are on like a
Atlantic.
major label. Like
exactly.
They're on
Atlantic. So that's what I'm saying. Is that
I feared this from the very beginning. I was like, this is the like stereotypical like major label problem where they're like they sign a kind of buzzy band. They're like, oh yeah, the weird kids are gonna love this, but like you're gonna cross over in the mainstream, right, guys? Right. And then it just doesn't pop. It's like only the weirdos like this. Like, what did you expect?
Yeah, exactly. Like both of these singles read as the label basically brought them in and said, "All right, we get this, quote unquote, but we don't actually get it.
You have license to make whatever you want, and as long as it pops, we'll be fine with it."
And then they answered that question with, "Okay, we're gonna make a Doritos and Fritos song that sounds like Primus,"
and it sucks.
And now the label's like, "Fuck, okay, back to the drawing board. This isn't taking on TikTok." Yeah, I don't know. Again, that's a bummer.
Anyways, I can't
we gotta
get
move
over
on.
how long that.
Yeah, back to Let's See Grandma.
That's not even a long rollout. That's a rollout that they hit the eject button on, which is the same thing that happened with Romy. Which I don't get why they did it with Romy, because the single was good. The single was amazing, and I was like, all right, Lifetime, great fucking dance pop single. Romy's gonna take over the world. Solo album. She's out as gay now. Nope. I'm denied once again, but that's okay because we have this Let's Eat Grandma album, which is kind of what I hoped the Romy album would be. It's a very great little synth pop record. This album has 2 things that were working against it as far as me and my initial reaction to it. One is that I now have heard a Let's See Grandma album, so I can't really have my brain exploded the way I did when I heard I'm All Ears, which was just like a record that from my very first listen was just like, this is everything I kind of wanted pop music to be for the last couple of years, but this is actually doing it. And I think that record is still like one of my favorite records of the decade. I love it so much. And so it's got that stacked up against it, and it also has stacked up against it that this is just a more muted record in general, and for like very good reason. Like basically in the time between the last record and this record, the two of them have been through a lot, particularly, and I'm forgetting which one is which off the top of my head in their names, but one of them had a boyfriend who died basically about like a year or two after I'm All Ears came out. And it happened around the time where the two of them were also kind of not growing apart, but it's like one of those relationships where it's like these two people had this like codependent relationship for their entire adolescences into adulthood, and then sort of had to rework out like, oh, how do we like communicate with each other? Because for so long they basically were like able to communicate telepathically, like finishing each other's sentences type best friends. And then I think this event that happened in their lives, basically, you can read the Guardian profile that Laura Snapes did, which is fantastic. It's like one of my favorite. It's like from November of last year, which goes back to how fucking long this rollout's been happening. But go back and read it. It's really, really great. And it talks about basically how over the course of her healing from that obviously tragic thing happening to them, that they sort of rediscovered how to write songs together and rekindled their friendship. And this record is a really, really like beautiful testament to that. But like the problem with that is it does kind of have a side A, side B, where the first half of the record has all the really, really great, exciting pop tunes, and then the second half is much more acoustic. It's much more kind of, like I said, subdued, muted, whatever kind of words you want to use. It's not boring. I don't think it ever gets into like sleepy pop music territory the way that like so many of the pop albums from last year did. Like it does not go solar power mode. They remembered to put on pants. But I do.
Yeah, let me investigate the album cover here. I gotta look and see if one of them is.
They're wearing dresses, so they're technically not wearing pants on the album cover. However, no ass cheeks splayed across the album cover. Anyways, this is a great record though. Like it has after that sort of initial like, oh, it didn't hit me quite the way that the first one did, which was just like a nuclear bomb. As I've spent more time with it, the second half of that record really, really grew on me. Like the closing track, Two Ribbons, which I was glad that I didn't listen to it when it was released as a single because it's a very, very great closer. I really like Insect Loop. That's one of the kind of funkier, more experimental tracks because this one also feels a little less like wild and uninhibited the way that they're. And I think the I'm All Ears strikes the right balance because their first record is like a little too wild and uninhibited. That's the one that they made when they're like 16 and it has a rap verse on it. Anyways, yeah, like I think that this record is really great and shows to me that they are going to continue climbing and they're going to make, I think their next record is going to be a fucking knockout is what I expect. But we still have a lot of great tracks to appreciate on this one. And I really like the way it kind of wraps up this sort of chapter of their lives and really feels like it doesn't feel like a grief record in the way that like say the Kathyrn Joseph album feels like a grief record.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's good. I've never been the biggest Let's See Grandma fan. I still wouldn't say I'm the biggest fan, but I like this record. Some really good stuff. Surprisingly, I think the more ballady stuff, like the slower stuff, is probably my favorites on the record. Like, Strange Conversations is probably my favorite song on the record.
That one's
like,
really
just
good.
Very, like, just very emotional kind of ballady type song. Like, it's good, but again, was it worth like a 8-month rollout? No, it was not. It's a case where it's just like I don't understand like why artists are so afraid, or why labels, I should say. Artists, I think it's a different story. I'm not sure why labels are so afraid to like put stuff out digitally and then wait for the vinyl release months later. Like
it's probably honestly a better strategy because you can build up hype and momentum online so that by the time the records are available, there's an actual demand for people wanting to buy them.
Exactly.
I think part of the problem is like labels still are really hung up on the idea that like vinyl is the major breadwinner, and they believe that if people like see a vinyl isn't available, they're going to be like, well, I'll just put it off for later and then never.
Or that they're worried about like sort of Radiohead disease of like, oh, if it's available for free on the internet, why would anyone want to purchase the physical? Like,
and also I think to an extent they're afraid that like, people not blindly pre-ordering people like
that
hearing the
is
record and
true.
then
Yeah.
going, not my thing. Like rather than just blindly
there are certain artists in recent memory who I'm sure wish they could have which they could have gotten more pre-orders in so that no one could realize they were about to drop a stink.
I can certainly think of one probably.
Anyways, this is a good record. We can move on. I don't have. Go ahead. You guys talk about.
Okay. So
I'll introduce this next one, Rose.
Okay, cool. So I get to go to my soapbox again about how Billy Woods is the best rapper alive. I'm willing to say it. I'm willing to make so bold a claim, but like him and Elucid, man, they don't stop. Like every year I look and I see I get emails in my. I get emails in my inbox from Backwoods Studios. It's like, yeah, we got another like 3 Akai solo records. Oh, by the way, Billy Woods is back. I'm just like, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
And this year he decided to drop finally his first record since I believe 2019, which was Terror Management. This year he dropped a collab with producer Preservation called Aethiopes. Super good. Like this is like my favorite of his in a while. Like I wasn't really as sold on Hiding Places as some people. I really like Brass though, but like this is my favorite since Known Unknowns. Like this record is just like super prime Billy Woods. It's got like just really like kind of creaky house floor beats that I think it's the best way to describe a lot of these.
Mm-hmm.
Like creaky house floors and like old strings. Like I just love how like horrible the vibes are on all his records. And like this has got like a really great veritable like just interesting set of features on it too, which helps a lot. Like I think one of the things about Billy Woods records for me that kind of puts him in and out is like he doesn't seem to like features as much as he does on the Arm & Hammer records, but like here it really comes through. Like he's got a Fatboy Sharif, Despo, Breeze Bruin, Mike Ladd, Elucid, very rare LP appearance.
Again, this is again. This is my. Sorry to interrupt. I'm going to be very brief. This is my first Billy Woods record. I really loved it. I need to go back and listen to more Billy Woods.
You gotta try like great. Hiding Places or like History Will Absolve Me. Those things rule.
This is great. Again, the LP track Heavy Water is one of my most listened to tracks of the year. It is so good to hear LP like back on his like early 2000s like Fan Dam, also with Your Dead shit. Like he sounds so good on this production. It's like, my God, like have we been missing out on this?
Yeah, I genuinely think we have. Like we got into it on a previous one, but like, man, I really want to hear that guy back. Like I think he could be pretty good.
Yeah. So, but again, he's because Cancer Cure turned 10 this year, he's definitely kind of like he's floated out there being like, hey, like I might go back and do another solo.
Killer Mike just dropped his first solo track. I think both of them very smartly realized that like even though Run the Jewels has become an incredible vehicle for their career, if they both released a solo record, it would probably generate more hype for the next Run the Jewels record. Like, right? Like,
100%. I think like at least Mike seems to be teeing up for that. Like his new one didn't interest me that much, but I was like, oh yeah, he seems to be building up to something, which is like cool.
Yeah, it definitely felt like a first single from a rollout that's gonna start.
Yeah, but like back to Billy, like oh my God, he's just one of the most like preeminent like scene setters, I would say. Like he's really good at just describing a situation to you and like just giving you these very evocative lines. Like there's one that goes like what I'm gonna look it up now because like it's gonna drive me crazy if I don't. Let's see, where is it? Yeah, y'all can banter for a bit if you want about LP while I'm looking it up again.
Yeah, no, I said what I need to say, but this is just a really good record. Like production here sounds fantastic. Billy just has such a very like unique, weathered presence on this album, where like just one of the rappers were just like you listen to him, like this is a guy who has seen some fucking shit, and like it's kind of you hear it in his voice. It's not always in the words. It's always just like you hear it in the voice. but yeah, this is just really.
Yeah,
I don't know how to talk about rap music like this sometimes. Like it's just really fucking
yeah,
good.
exactly. Like I am not somebody who can speak intelligently on most genres, as I have displayed many times before. But like, oh my god, he just has this way of like writing where I'm just like, this is where like I can tell like this is genius, and I am willing to call him the best because I
Mhm.
genuinely do believe that. Like of all the guys I do bother to listen to these days, it's like who else is doing this? You know, like to go back, this quote. A few classmates made the news, police pursuits. Reg flew off the dirt bike like a carton of eggs, came back stuttering with a limp and a dent in his head. Beautiful dreams he said he had when he was dead, twice on the table. On the bright side, they only gave him house arrest once they seen he disabled. Good lawyer. And there's like a little ad lib after, good lawyer. It's
Mhm.
just like,
Also, I mean, also the line on Nine Necks that the future isn't flying cars, it's Rachel Dole's all absolved.
yeah,
Like,
he has dozens of lines like that. Like he loves talking about like DJ Vlad, like these weird, just like
Hey,
deep.
you know who
Just like
else? You know who else likes talking about DJ Vlad?
who?
Our ex nephew Rose.
Oh
oh,
yeah,
I
that's
thought you were
right.
gonna say Brian Pumper because he has a
No,
lot of DJ Vlad interviews.
I was gonna talk about. Isn't there the RXW song where he says DJ
Yeah,
Vlad
he no,
like
he has
15 times
Wouldn't
in a
surprise
row?
me.
but like one of my favorite Billy Woods lines is just DJ Vlad, the big boss at the end of the internet, which is just like such a specific thing that you can only understand if you're like deep in that specific like kind of cultural poisoning as him.
Mm-hmm.
It's super interesting. Matty, you got to listen to Paraffin. Paraffin
Yeah,
is like so good.
I think I did the time but was it? Yeah, I must have not remembered it or like. I gotta
It's
go
like
back to it now. I gotta go back to it
one of my
now.
favorite records like from that decade period. It's
Things have clicked a little more.
yeah,
So
I really think it'll hit different.
yeah.
Billy
Uh,
Woods like super good and like I, yeah, shout out to Preservation because like oh my god, it's been a while like since no, actually, Billy has been like on the solo one producer kick for a bit, other than Terror Management. Like I believe Hiding Places was a Kenny Siegel collab. Then Known Unknowns, of course, was a Blockhead collab, and I think was Dower Candy also one too. I don't remember. Yeah, Dower
mhm.
Candy was also just an all Blockhead album. Like he knows how to get guys who like just perfectly curate to one sound for him per album, and I think it works really well.
Yeah.
They're just great performer. I will always be excited to see Billy Woods and shout out to Lucid too because he put out one called I Told Bessie that's like pretty good and I think these two solo releases show like you know like the way they're the kind of yin and yang of Arm and Hammer whereas Lucid is like he describes it as like he describes his writing of songs as like trying to cast spells which is like yeah that's I think that's more accurate like he's not trying to be as much a storyteller as he is just like curating a specific like feeling which I really like you know they complement each other well and I'm always happy to see stuff from them they're just so talented.
Mm-hmm. Well then, oh god.
Oh
Okay, yeah.
god,
This is one we again. This is one where we were debating on it,
we're
but it's like
legally
we gotta talk
obligated to
about
talk
it.
about this.
It's one of the biggest records this year. Of course, it's a new Kendrick Lamar record, Mr. Morale and the Big
I mean
Steppers. I don't get to begin these too often, so
yeah
I
no
will
go ahead
start.
I wasn't about to interrupt don't worry.
Um, boy, this one is just so the first listen to this, because I remember the night this came out, where a number of us in the pod Discord were listening to this sort of in real time, and all of us kind of coming to the conclusion being like, oh no, like what the fuck is he doing? And yeah, the first listen was terrible. The first listen I was like,
I
what
can
the
give
fuck
you
is he
like
doing?
I can give you a recounting of like the real time experience of that because I remember it very vividly. It was like first song we're like, oh yeah, here we go, guys. Like that first song is kind of hidden. Second song we like hear him. Everyone goes like, oh no, did he just say cancel culture? It's just like
Yeah,
it
this
like
is not
slowly
we're
spirals
again.
out from there.
Some of the lines I will let y'all go for that because that's not my conversation to have. Um,
Oh.
but the first listen was like, wow, this is just like terrible. The production was not very good. His bars were just like what are, like this like what is like it, and then but on the second listen, some things clicked into place a little more. but I still came away being like, this is about the worst kind of mid you can put out. Where this album is, it's like a solid 4 out of 10 for me at this point. Like that's the rating I give. It's just the songs are not very good. Like the big problem with this record, above all else, is that he forgot to make the songs good.
Yeah.
And here's the thing: this kind of record, I'm not opposed, because my favorite Kendrick Lamar album is Damn. Like, so I'm not opposed to Kendrick leaning more on his pop side of things. Like that's more
I don't
pop,
think
more
this
modern
is a pop
sounding
album.
sound.
I think all the attempts at
That's
pop
the thing,
on this
exactly.
album
That's the
fucking
thing.
fall on their face.
Exactly. That's the thing, is that he's not committing. Unlike Damn, where he really does commit to the pop sound at times, this doesn't commit either way, where it just
He's
sounds
not
like
committing to anything. Like that's the problem. It's like this
Exactly.
has no coherent ideas other than like, well, I'm imperfect, guy, so therefore you're not allowed to criticize me.
Yeah, no. This
it's a case of Kendrick where he very much has had a crisis of conscience, has lost his confidence, and there's sometimes where that happens with some artists where it makes for really interesting records. But for Kendrick, it's just like, it is clear he is still going through a process that he's not done with yet. And the fact that we're kind of getting this like midway point with this record being like, oh shit, I should probably put out an album. It's like, dude, maybe you should work out your shit before you commit it to record. But again, there's cases where like that midway point, it does make for some interesting records. But for Kendrick, it's just like, man, it sounds like a dude who does not know what he's doing at this point in time.
Yeah,
and it's frustrating.
It is deeply confusing, and also like I saw some like folks talking in like my journal feeds, and they're just like, this is a record that like seemingly is influenced a lot by like Triple X, which does not surprise me. Like the artist, not the album. Like I have not listened to the guy, so I cannot make a call on this. But like multiple people I've seen be like, yeah, this does seem to take a lot from him, which isn't surprising considering his tweets. It's like, listen to this if you need any raw thoughts. It's just like
my thoughts on this album are similar to y'all's, but a little different, which is that I really don't think that, and we were kind of having this discourse back and forth in the Discord today, I don't think like this album is like an okay or good or even above average album that is sunk by the really awful couple of moments that do sink this album. Like, I will not pretend to you like I did not hear Anti-Diaries and say, what the fuck is this? Like, and I still say, what the fuck is this? I think that song has absolutely no idea besides just that, like, I'm just gonna dive headfirst into this situation without really without really any coherent idea of what I'm trying to get across. But you could remove that song. You could remove that song entirely. You could remove "We Cry Together" entirely, which is an Eminem song. That is the first time Kendrick Lamar has fully made an Eminem song. You could take that off too. Take whatever you think are the other two worst 2 to 3 songs off of this album. Whatever you have left there, it's not even mid. It's bad. It's just not good.
I agree. It's a bad record.
There are no songs about this on this record that I have wanted to go back to for any particular reason.
I personally like. I listened to the entire thing the first night. Haven't touched it again. I can't tell you a single thing other than like 3 songs. The very first one, which I thought was pretty good. The one where they're just screaming at each other for like 6 minutes straight over this god awful piano loop. That's like I cannot believe The Alchemist.
That song has actually I can believe The Alchemist made it, and 2, that song has transcended its badness to becoming just a hilarious bit at this point. Like when Matty made the rave DJ, I laughed so hard.
Again, like I just cannot.
I haven't returned to the actual song. I'm just talking about now when we put other things over it as a meme.
Oh yeah, wait, when you put other things over, it's really funny. Like I have in my head. Imagine like just putting like inane arguments from TV shows over it.
I think that this record in miniature, I think, is represented very well by Silent Hill, which is a song that has a great beat, but it makes 2 mistakes. One, that Kodak Black is on the song and he's a fucking rapist. But 2, Kodak Black is on the song when it obviously is a Playboi Carti song, and Playboi Carti should have been on that song. Like, go listen to that beat and tell me that. So it's like, that's the perfect example of what this whole thing is doing. It's like, not only are you making this ham-fisted, really clumsy cancel culture point that like just doesn't work, you're also like sabotaging the actual goodness of the music to try to make that point. and that's when you just shoot yourself in the foot. Like I also think the production on here is the weakest that has been on any Kendrick album, and that's like,
it's just very bad production. Borderline bad production.
Some of it sounds more dated than the stuff on Good Kid, Mad City.
That first song, it sucks.
Yeah, it's again,
exactly.
as Rihanna stated.
I don't know.
As Rihanna stated in the Discord, it's leftover Black Panther beats. Like, this is what the album is.
And it's
a fucking bad
wanted
record.
to call it experimental and like challenging because it was a lot to take in. Like, he did dump like multiple years worth of like trauma and like unfinished psychotherapy in our lap. So I understand why people were like, well, we've got to take some time to suss this out. Guess what? I've taken some time. It's worse now than it was the day I listened to it.
And I mean, at the same time, it's just like at the same time, like, you know that at the end of the year, there's going to be people that just like hit the like equivalent of like clicking the first date on the drop down box when you need to enter your date of birth. You like click, like January 1st.
No, exactly.
It's like that is putting this album at the top of your album of the year.
But like that's the thing I was surprised about. It didn't have as dominant a place on the album of the year so far list as I thought. I mean, it was on every fucking list. Don't get me wrong, but like that would be literally impossible for a Kendrick Lamar album. Like, that's the thing about this album that I did come to terms with after a week, is that like people were gonna call this album a classic if it was literally 2 hours of fart noises. Like, people were going to call
I wish he had dropped that. I would gladly listen to that.
I agree. As I said in the Discord earlier, I would rather listen to Kanye West "Lift Yourself" than any song on this album. Poopty Scoop is genuinely,
that song is really funny.
That song is actually like it's genuinely hilarious out of context, but it's a million times funnier when you realize that the reason why he did that is because Drake was going to rap over that beat, and he's like, I need to ruin this for Drake. Let me just let me do nonsense words over it so that he can't use the beat.
I mean, like, he picked particularly good nonsense too, like
poopity scoop, poopity scoop.
Something about those syllables.
Anyways, we're getting off track here because this album is actually not as interesting to talk about as people like to pretend it is.
Yeah. I guess this is an expansion of something we kind of briefly touched on with Bartees Strange. It's critics putting the cart before the horse.
Yeah.
It's like, well, it's a new Kendrick Lamar album. We have to give it, high critical praise. And I think like, I think there's definitely I think people are having a lot more discussions about the place, like where music writing in criticism is right now, where we're into, again, I'm going to sound like a right winger when I talk about this, so please excuse me. We're entering a much more pussified music industry apparatus, at least on the editorial end.
Yeah.
I could have picked a different word. That's why I said I'm sorry to sound right wing, because I can't think of a better word.
He's never picked up a dictionary in his life.
I mean, if you listen to the bonus episode, if you listen to Matt Libs, I definitely have that picked up.
You're right, but you could have used a different word to express
I could have, but here we are. But it's just case again.
If you want to be crass, you could say like limp dicked or something like that.
I guess, but I guess at the end of the day, we're not playing Matt Libs. We're not doing that. I'm trying to make a serious point about the state of music criticism, where I think because it is so fractured right now. Here's the thing: when critics like Pitchfork, I talked about this on a podcast that I guested on that's going to be out, I think on the 11th, I think, where I think critics are really scared to like really put like negative scores towards like a lot of records, is because like. They don't want to lose these connections. They don't want to lose their jobs. Like, well, if I shit on this big indie record, like I may not get writing opportunities elsewhere. I got to keep publicists might not want to work with me anymore. I might not get advances. All these publications, they might not want to work with me because I shit on this record. So I to that extent, I get why critics and writers have been a bit more reserved in hating stuff and really. Even but again, okay, you'll have Pitchfork every now and then. They'll do a big pan
with like this,
on like a Jack Harlow, but that's safe. That's fucking easy. That's an easy target because there's no again. Jack Harlow is gonna be fine. There's no connection
Matty,
with the journalist.
We have so many albums to talk about.
I know. I'm gonna wrap it up.
Briefly. Everyone got this at the same time. Like, there's no advance to get on this. What access are they losing that we don't have? Like. That's what I don't understand.
Yeah, I will say, Matty, I agree with you 100% in general. This is not that. This is people having put so much stock into this guy is a generational genius with something to say, and until they like shake themselves of that notion, they are going to keep staring into this Rorschach painting and trying to make something out of it. That's what it is more than like, 'cause no one, I mean, I think if anything, I think in general you're right. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that most music writers are freelance nowadays. And because of that, you don't have the security of like, I work for a major publication. And so I can go out on a limb and really say how I feel about something, knowing that my publication is going to back me up. Because one, the publication is not really going to back you up. You're just kind of out for your own with the Twitter trolls. But also, like, there so few people have stable publication jobs, just in music journalism, in journalism in general. So, like, it does become more precarious. You're right about like needing to maintain those relationships. But I don't think that has anything to do with the Kendrick album. And I think if someone had been willing to stake out this album is bad take, obviously they would have gotten brigaded by Kendrick fans. But like, I think they would have gotten some respect critically, like among other like writers and editors and stuff. But I do think overall you're right. And I think it is more of the like putting the cart before the horse. And also just like he was on such an untouchable stretch that so many people's brains heard the album and just simply rejected the fact that it was bad. And we're just like, no. I didn't listen to it right. Let me try this again.
I think the thing is, it's going to be very interesting to see how this record fares up in like a year or like whenever the next Kendrick album rolls around.
Or even by the end of the year. Like,
exactly. Too. Like, I do genuinely wonder, like, if we get like, you know, like a genuine marquee record that is like more beloved than this, and I think we all know what that's going to be. Just
I haven't heard any conversations about this album that are not happening on podcasts that talk about new music releases. You know what I mean? Like,
exactly. Like, I have not seen anybody like talk about this other than that one song.
Not to mention the fact that this is one of the all-time scariest albums that you would never play. Never play one of these tracks in any sort of public situation.
I don't know. I think I could get away with playing "We Cry Together" at a party. I think I could get away.
But that's the thing. Is like you called this pop leaning earlier, and like what tracks of these are pop leaning are on the radio right now?
I guess 895. And again, I was gonna say that there's only like 2 good songs on the record, and it's like the first 2 songs, and then it goes to shit from there. Like I think 895 is pretty decent, but I digress. Kendrick Lamar, Mr. Morale. Let's move on. Let's move on to our next album, which
an album that I will have nothing to say about. Okay,
Tomberlin. I don't know who needs to hear.
I probably won't have much to say, but that's just because I don't really. I haven't listened to it enough to really gather my thoughts intelligently. It's pretty good though.
I don't know who needs to hear this. But this is the album of the year non-Ethel Cain division, folks. This is it. Literally, last year, this would probably have been my runaway favorite album of the year so far. Runner. Any other year of the last couple probably would have been. It just had the misfortune of arriving in the same year that a meteor hit me. But Tomberlin, I don't know who needs to hear this. Incredible fucking album. I went into this expecting it to be a kind of by the numbers 2022 indie singer songwriter folk record, which was kind of just what I had gathered from like what I've generally heard people talk about her music, but just like I hadn't heard much of it. I've since listened to her last record, and her last record was kind of what I was expecting this new one to be, which is why I am like so adamant that this new record is a fucking revelation, because I feel like it is simultaneously building on what was already good about her songwriting, but also expanding it upward and outward into this incredibly ambitious pop album that, even though these are going to sound like the least helpful and most like just like heaping praise for the sake of heaping praise hyperbole comparisons, but genuinely the 2 albums this album reminds me the most of are Frank Ocean's Blonde and Fiona Apple's Fetch the Bolt Cutters, which is like an indication to you of how much I think this is really, really fucking special. But I just think it's an incredible record that unfolds in like the most satisfying way. Like this has been the year for me of either really short albums that I love or really, really long albums I love. I have multiple albums in my top 10 that clear an hour in length, and this is one of them. And that's because even though I am very in favor of short albums, and if you can be concise and you can make a full statement in a short amount of time, I'm always going to give that points. But I'm also going to give points to anyone who can make a record this long that never feels boring, that never feels like it's retreading itself, and that just like sticks the landing and pulls off being this long. And I do think that the Tomberlin album is an incredible example of that, partly because of this album is like a genius work of track listing. I think the way that this album starts with Easy, which is a fucking beautiful gut punch of a song, but is this like slow, like really patient, almost hesitant introduction that keeps feeling like it's about to swell into this great, like these strings keep coming in and you feel like the whole song is about to open up, and then the strings go back away again and it goes down to the kind of smallest minute detail again. And basically there are almost no electric guitars until like 3/4 of the way through this album. Like it is very intimate, very kind of quiet for the whole first half of the record, but you just completely fall into this hypnotic trance, so that by the time she does get to the back half of the album and you get the more rock oriented cuts, particularly Stoned, which is the fucking song of the year, like one of the best indie rock songs I have heard in multiple years, and then right into Happy Accident right after that, like that 1-2 punch. It's like you get so locked into the album that you're like, oh, guitars exist. I forgot about electric guitars. Cool. And in general, just like the album, like going to the kind of Fetch the Bolt Cutters comparison, it's like an album that feels like it's just unfolding right before you as it's happening. Like it feels like every single word that she's saying, like she's thinking of it as she says it, which comes to to wrap this up here, my spiel, like the closing track of the record is the song I Don't Know Who Needs to Hear This, and it's just this beautiful, like little, like very simple sing-songy little acoustic ballad about, like, she's just like, hey, sometimes it's good to sing your feelings even when you don't know what the next word is, just like express it. But it does the magic trick that Bolt Cutters does, where it simultaneously feels like it's unfolding completely organically, but it also feels like every detail has been meticulously thought about and considered. And it's just one of the best written records of this year, one of the best sounding records of this year. I'm completely fucking in love with it. I'm a full Tomberlin fan for life now. Yeah, go listen to it. It's really good. Matty, Rose, do you have anything to say about this record?
I went back to this one last night.
Not enough time. I am not intelligent enough to speak about this.
I'll just say that I went back to this one last night, enjoyed it a lot more. Again, there's a lot of little details that popped up that didn't pop up on my first listen. So if you didn't enjoy this on the first listen, I definitely recommend giving it another go, because again, I think it's a slow burn record. It's definitely a slow burn record for me. There's a lot of really good stuff. I recommend it. But
I also recommend listening to it in the car, because that's part of how it really. I had a long, like a just about an hour car ride that I threw it on at the start of, and like this is a record similar to another one we'll talk about later that like really benefits from that kind of listening environment. We were not like too like impatient with it.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyways.
Okay, next one. I feel like we can be relatively brief since we don't have a certain.
I have no fucking thoughts.
We need to keep powering through. How about this? Here's my thoughts. Arcade Fire, more like wee, because this album is bad. I don't know.
Hey, okay, I'll get my out of my system. So I did not listen to this until like last week. You know, I'm working in an office these days, and I need to put on things to distract my brain. You know, just put on some of the headphones while I file out spreadsheets. And wow, this was a horrible choice. This was like the most anonymous thing I've heard all year. It is like just so bland. Like these guys used to be able to write a chorus. Like I know this for a fact. And now every song is just like, okay, we just repeat the title over and over and over and over, and that's the chorus. No songs that remotely interested me in the slightest. Like the like half of it is like diet pure comedy, and like as somebody who likes pure comedy, that's an insult to me. It's just, oh my god. There's only one song.
I think the real sin that this record commits, that I think is what Larry Fitzmaurice said it, is that it is simultaneously not like, it is so much safer than the last album was, which like I have a lot of problems with everything now, but I will at least give that album credit for fucking swinging for the fences. And because that album swings for the fences,
that album has a couple good songs.
Exactly. No, like the title track of Everything Now is a great ABBA song. And like they wouldn't have gotten that song if they had not taken all the other swings that go hilariously wrong on that album. whereas this album has exactly as much like Win Butler cringe, but zero of the actual musical risk taking, and instead it's like the most safe back to basics thing that they've done.
And the worst part is like they're already like, oh guys, we get what you want, you know. They're like they make like cheeky little references of like, yeah, we hate the last one as much as you do, and it's like, shut up, you had the lack of self-judgment to make that thing. Why don't you own it, jerks?
Hey, Arcade Fire, you know who made that last shitty album? You did. You did. That was you.
The one song here that's like actually enjoyable is like Diet car commercial music. Like,
are you referring to the Lightning one?
No, I'm referring to Lookout Kid, which I think
Lookout Kid is good.
That one like has a genuinely nice chorus. And I was like, oh, this is sweet. Like, why is the rest of this no good?
Yeah, I didn't mind the Lightning one, but then I heard Free from the Florence and Machine album, and I was like, why would I literally ever listen to that song when I could listen to this one instead?
Exactly. It's just like, why bother with this? Like, what qualities does this have that you cannot get out of like 5 other things?
The quality that it has is it's an Arcade Fire album, and for some people that's
true.
enough.
I believe some people will really like the fact that it has that name build up there.
And even AJ hasn't been like, for a record that's like billing itself as the Arcade Fire return to form, AJ has been remarkably not
I think he said
he
likes Everything Now better.
He does. I'm sure he does.
I'm pretty sure he said that.
Which you got to expect AJ going down with that take ship. You know,
listen.
I will always have respect for dying on a take hill.
I agree with him. I think it's better than this.
We should move on to the next record because I have more thoughts on that one. As far as late legacy acts doing a new album that honestly is kind of disappointing, but I'll just get my thoughts out of the way real quick. It's the Smile, folks. It's the Smile. Smile. It's the Smile.
It's the year of the smile.
It is the year of the smile. I was excited for this record, obviously. I'm literally never not excited for a Radiohead side project. I even had the fucking banners out for Ed O'Brien's solo album. Like, I am the person that is here for every Radiohead side project, and was especially excited for this because of how much I love the last Tom York solo record. I think Anima is the best Tom York solo record, significantly. And I just generally... like all of the non-mainline Radiohead stuff. So like seeing that, it's Tom and Johnny, and like some of the singles were pretty good. I was kind of intrigued, but also because some of the singles seemed like it's like, okay, what is this album going to sound like? Because it feels like these singles are kind of pointing in a lot of different directions. And the kind of end take that I've arrived at this album after initially really not liking it, but warming up to it a little bit over time, and when I revisited it for this episode, this is essentially Diet Hail to the Thief. It's one of the first records in a while where they've made the mistake of, they keep forgetting that every time you put more than 10 songs on a Radiohead album, there's 1 or 2 bits of filler, and as long as you keep it to the small one, like every time they think, okay, this time we can get away with 13 tracks. Every single time they do it, there are a couple that like you could cut. But unlike Hail to the Thief, where like the cuttable songs on Hail to the Thief are still really good, or they're still like interesting in what they're doing, the couple of songs on here that are stinkers are stinkers. Namely, Panavision, I think is like a horrible Suspiria soundtrack leftover with the cringiest lyrics on the record. That's like the Emperor. That's the one that starts with like the Emperor has no clothes thing. It's like, dude, whether this is a Boris thing or a Trump thing or not, it's just like so juvenile for you, Tom. Like, you can do so much better than this.
I mean, here's the thing. I wouldn't mind those if they were on like a song that kind of went hard, but this is just like,
exactly, no, like,
you know, and there's like another one on the same album that's like really just childishly stupid lyrics.
Free in the Knowledge, I've seen people say that, like, there was some review that said Free in the Knowledge is instantly in the classic of Tom York.
Absolutely not.
Free in the Knowledge and Panavision are the 2 worst tracks on the record, and they're the most ballady tracks on the record, and they're both the most like political tracks on the record. And even though Tom isn't too literal about it the way that Win Butler is, where even when he's doing like lib posting, he's always shrouding it in multiple layers of like kind of abstract.
I mean, I will say I have never seen him post a photo of himself next to a statue of George Orwell and say like, this guy's a big fan of my new record.
I mean, but like, this is the guy, we always have to remember this about Tom York. Tom York
he follows the god Twitter.
Yes, that's exactly what I was going to say, Rose. He follows @God on Twitter. Like Tom York, deep down at his core, is a New York Times reading, like enjoyer of like lib post shit and like a cringy like adult atheist guy. Like that is who Tom York is, and I still love him anyways, and still think there are some really great songs on here anyways. That as I sort of kept going back to it, I sort of said, okay, when I take this apart, there are moments here that I really like. Like I really like there's a buzzing sound. So I don't mind. Stop. I really like Thin Thing. I really like The Smoke, even though that feels very much like a In Rainbow's retread. Speech Bubbles and We Don't Know What Tomorrow Brings are my two favorites on the record, which Speech Bubbles also feels like a In Rainbow's retread, but like in a good way. And We Don't Know What Tomorrow Brings is one of the few that has like an actual groove to it, besides You Will Never Work in Television Again, which is like,
I think those two are like the only ones I would ever consider going back to, especially.
I do love the concept of Radiohead Japan droids that You Will Never Work in Television. I wouldn't even
call it that. I just call it like, like body snatchers, but like with a few brain cells shaken loose.
Exactly, but like even those songs, like they don't feel really like cohesive with the rest of the record. Like that's the thing, is more than literally any Radiohead release.
It feels like, like somebody took like all the ingredients of a Radiohead album and then like put them in a blender and just pureed them.
Yeah, just kind of spilled them all over a table and then like hastily swiped all those contents into like a bag and then like threw that bag over their shoulder.
That's what I'm saying. They pureed it in a blender. They're just like, I guess the flavor's right. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. Which is why what it ends up amounting to is exactly what Stephen Hayden called it, which is like Radiohead methadone. Like if you couldn't live another year without new Radiohead music in your life, like this will tide you over till you can get your next hit. That's about it.
Which that was gonna be my main point of this record, because I did try to give it another listen today and like I couldn't finish it. It was just boring me to tears.
I just don't care.
I'm not the highest on Radiohead compared to other people within our pod sphere. Obviously,
me neither.
love Kid A, love Amnesiac. But I think what this record really proves is like just how important to Radiohead that like Colin, Ed, and Phil are, because they all add like
I'm mainly putting Ed on this. I think Ed is the key element.
Yeah, because they all add so much important textual work that when, because for the longest time, I think fans did think that like, okay, like Tom and Johnny are like the creative core of that band, and they're not wrong per se, but I think when you eliminate Colin, Ed, and Phil, I think when it's just those two guys with their devices, there's some brilliance here and there, but there's some stuff where it's like, man, they could have been reeled in, or like really there could be some more interesting stuff that could be thrown into the mix.
I think for me, more than Ed, the person I miss most on this album is Colin, because I think that all of the moments like The Smoke, where they're very much trying to do an In Rainbows-y kind of thing, like it's not like Johnny can't play the bass, but Colin is just like an incredible one-of-a-kind bassist, and like his bass playing is what carries In Rainbows like a lot of the time. Like
we need to do like wife swap, but for like the members of the band who are like the primary songwriters, and like they just need to trade out for a month and see how it goes.
I will say though, like you're 100% right that like this album it like gets really sleepy in the middle and is just kind of lost and mixed. I will say in classic Radiohead fashion, they come right around on that last track, Skirting in the Surface, and it's a fucking great Radiohead closer. Like if that was the last track on any Radiohead album, I'd be like, that's a satisfying Radiohead closer. So like the last two tracks kind of wraps it up just enough where I'm like, okay, that wasn't a complete waste of time, but like Waving a White Flag, Free in the Knowledge, like every one of my favorite tracks on the record is either immediately or closely preceded by one of the bad ones. And so it's got you just get taken out of the flow of it in a way that's never the case on other Radiohead albums.
But hey, doesn't it put a smile on your face?
It does put a smile on my face. The best stretch of the record is Speech Bubbles to Open the Floodgates. That part is good. But yeah.
Jesus Christ, they're doing trivia again.
I muted that chat for 8 hours because I have to go to a concert. So let's move on to the next record. Grace Ives, Janky Star. I think you probably more to say on this one, Jackie, than myself.
I think I'm the primary marker.
I mean,
really?
I am. No, I literally, the only reason why I haven't been bumping this incessantly is because I was trying to maintain the number one spot on my charts for a bit. But Janky Star, Grace Ives. I was in on the first Grace Ives record, which, if anyone hasn't checked it out, I believe is called Mansion, or is that the name of one of the tracks?
I think it's Second, I believe.
Oh, it's called Second. That's right. Mansion is one of the tracks that I like on it. But Grace Ives is like a bedroom pop type producer, very much in the kind of mold of the many bedroom pop singer-songwriter indie rock people that we've gotten over the last couple of years. But the difference is she knows how to make a beat that bangs, actually. And her last album, Second, which came out in 2019, she made entirely on one keyboard/drum sampler, which she said that she purchased because it was the one that MIA used, which is cool. And on that one little machine, literally just a keyboard and like one little set of drum pads to program some like shitty drums with, makes a really fucking great dance pop record, like with no budget. And it has so much more, like it has obviously the kind of twee intimacy that is like the signature of the bedroom pop style. But it was clear that like this woman can write a damn hook, and this woman like has heard good beats before and good electronic music. And then that has all manifested beautifully on the new album, Janky Star, which I forget who produced the new album. I forget his name, but he's like worked with Charlie, worked with Sky Ferreira, has been a big...
An anonymous ass white boy of the week.
Anonymous ass white boy of the week produced this record, and it is fucking incredible because it simultaneously keeps the kind of rough around the edges like appeal that those original songs had. It doesn't like sheen off all of the edges. It is what the title says. It's a janky star. You know what I mean? Like it's got that kind of quirky DIY feel to it without feeling like that's a put on either. And it has lots of fucking ideas. It's like clear that like Grace Ives was given a budget for the first time.
Justin Risen, by the way. That's Justin Risen who produced. I think he also produced My Woman by Angel Olsen.
Yeah, has a crazy CV like across different genres, but is like very good at helping people like find exactly what it is they're going for. And I think that that's really clear on this record, where like she's just trying a bunch of stuff that all really fucking works. Like Burn Bridges, Loose. I really love Shelly, which is a great little guitar track. Lazy Days.
Yeah, that one gets into the vibes like. I keep calling it Post Caroline Rose because that's like the number one point for like this
totally
record that I really love. Like that's my comparison point for everything.
But yeah, like every track on it is great, and even though like the closer is a little bit like anticlimactic, it's come to be something I like about the album, because instead of it feeling like a closer where you're like, okay, the record is done now, we put it down. Like Lullaby is so good as a last song on the album, but doesn't really feel like you finished it, so you kind of just go like, kind of want to start it over again from the top. And I do a lot of the time. It's very easy. It's a 27-minute album. It's like 2 minutes longer than some rap songs. Like it's a very, very concise, to the point, all killer, no filler pop record. Something that and it's fun, which are all things that we just did not get from any pop artist last year. So I'm especially attuned to love this shit.
Yeah, I just think it's like super chill in a good way. You know, like I always go nuts for like very minimalist pop records. Hence my blabbering about Billie Eilish last year, which was just super great. And this is no exception. Like I really love Angel of Business, which is a track we haven't mentioned so far. I just like I think it uses a lot of really good like. A lot of really good electronic music production.
Totally.
Especially like the influence from that is really nice. Like every time she pulls out the Amen break again, I'm just
exactly. Yes, totally. Like Sydney Gish with Amen breaks is a genre of music I did not know I needed until I got it.
Yeah, I think that we gotta keep rushing. So like that's all I'm gonna say.
We do. It's Maddie's.
Yeah. I am muting the microphone.
I'll give this one short. Don't
worry.
We're
entering Maddie corner is what I was gonna say.
This is the Maddie corner here. Pendant Harp. I talked about this one briefly during the Q1 episode. This is again thanks to Rose. Rose is again, even though Rose is not really into this record, I got into this one because Rose heard the lead single Thorn and was like, Maddie, this is your thing. And I'm like, okay, let's see. First listen, I was like, I don't really know. And then I just kept going back to it. And I was like, oh, fuck.
I can pin it down. I call him when I see him.
Which you got me, because this is my album of the year so far. This feels like, I feel like my progression these album of the years, starting from like 2020 to now, is just like continuing on this idea of like warped nostalgia and sort of like taking electronic music and really viewing it through the lens of like indie rock or shoegaze or emo, and just being like figuring out like what little corners are not explored yet within the genre confines of like indie rock or something. Because the Spinning record, it really is like the backstory. The short backstory is that if you guys already know, Pennant, he was the last artist to put out an album through Tiny Engines before they folded after there was drama with Adult Mom and
Oh
and
dang! I
royalties
didn't
not
know he
being
was a
paid.
Tiny Engines guy.
Literally, like the album came out, his album from 2019, Through a Coil, came out, and then the next day, like Tiny Engines like basically folded. So like it was a whole mess. But after like touring that record, then the pandemic happened. He didn't have his usual like tools. Like, okay, I don't have my guitar that I can go to. He's just like, well, shit, I'm gonna learn how to use like fucking Logic and like drum machines and shit like that. Because like he's always had this love for like electronic music and like drum and bass and all this stuff, but like could never figure out how to do it himself. But obviously, the pandemic's like, well, shit, like guess I'm gonna learn. And this is an excellent record that goes to a lot of really interesting places. It's a very interesting exploration of grief, and through rap music and electronic music and indie rock and shoegaze and synth pop and crazy, just general crazy ass white boy shit going on this record, especially the lead single Thorn, which has like a Delia Derbyshire sample, the same one that Danny Brown used, which also has a fucking NSYNC sample that I had no idea until his manager told me at a concert, being like, "Oh yeah, we got like that it samples Tearing Up My Heart by NSYNC. They were like they're really easy to deal with to get that sample cleared. Like it was awesome.
That rocks.
Again, Rights for an Angel, just fucking banger track. Again, this is I've thankfully gotten to see this album live a couple times now, and it's even better live, the way he's able to kind of mesh some stuff in that couldn't make the record, or just stuff that like kind of came about after the record. This is all I have to say about this record is like it's my album of the year. So I obviously highly recommend you check it out. Even if it's not your thing, I think it's one of the most interesting releases of the year. I think it's getting like pretty severely shafted on album of the year list and stuff like that. I'm glad that Pace put it on their album of the year list. I'm glad that they've been a very strong proponent of it. But I wish more critics would get with the train.
My
I was
mic
talking
is still muted for this next one.
I'm so sorry. I was talking with a friend of mine who's also a musician, and we were talking about that record. And we both love it. He's like, "Yeah, this record's just like I wouldn't say this, but I'm just gonna, this is someone else's perspective. This is an album that feels like it's too smart for critics." And I don't fully disagree. That's not the take that I would have, but I don't disagree per se. It's a very it's a hot mess of a record, and I love it so much. If you like the Strange Ranger mixtape from last year like I did, hey, this is like a continuation of sorts on that sound. Jack, I know Jackie, you're
I like
also a
this
fan of
album
this record.
quite a bit. Yes, I think it's very good. I'm not as high on it as you, obviously, but like the couple of standout tracks, particularly Static Dream, great single.
Which by the way, Static Dream song of the year also.
Thorn is like just a fucking banger of a track. Thorn is like What If Brick by Alex G was like really good.
Hey.
And then hey, I just had to take a pot shot there, but LED Headrush is my other favorite. I really like all of the moments, like you're saying, that he really leans into the kind of dance music, drum and bass. Also, Blood Raid is a great bonus track.
Yes. Again, excellent record. And continuing on Manicore, I'm literally seeing this band tonight as we record this. Cola, Deep in View. This is the project of ex-Aught members Tim Darcy and Ben Stidworthy, the vocalist, guitarist, and bassist of Aught. This feels like very much kind of a the back to basics is a common trope, and this kind of in some ways feels like a back to basics record. Although it feels like an evolution of sorts of what they're kind of doing with Aught, but also going back to basics. It's this kind of weird thing where it's like it's both. It's like an alternative timeline of sorts of like what Aught could have gone down like later on the road. But this is just like an excellent.
It's like in a video game when there's like an option that's like, instead of restarting, you can just reset all your skill points and put them into like different skill tree attributes. Like that's what this is. It's like,
yes,
what if we cash in all our points and put a lot of them toward the same stuff, but what if we kind of do some different stuff also?
Yeah, it feels like a record where it's like, it feels in some ways it's very similar, obviously, to Aught, but also feels like very different from what they were doing on the last record in particular. This is just like an excellent kind of fun post-punk record, which I think one of the issues of kind of modern post-punk as of late is that a lot of it's either it's not very fun. The only time that people the only quote unquote fun post-punk that's out there these days is like some of these bands that like lean into being like scumbags, like a Viagra Boys or like a Warm Doucher, and I'm not with that shit. Or a case like Idols where it's like so sincere that it kind of hurts. It's like, okay, these two spectrums of like
I think
satirical
Squid when they're in their banger mode are fun.
Exactly.
Listen, if you want to make interesting post-punk, just stop making post-punk. Go make noise rock. You're gonna have way more fun.
Yeah. It's a fun record. Weirdly enough, I think the artist that I kind of gathered the most kind of like what popped up the most is the Strokes, and I'm not the biggest Strokes guy, but this is just like a very fun Strokesy like early post-punk revival type record. It's really good. I'm very excited to see it live tonight. I was supposed to go see Skullcrusher tonight, but I was like, you know what? I'm gonna have more fun at Cola. This should be the last gig I go to before I go back home and before Pitchfork Fest. So, Cola, Demon View, really good record. Any other thoughts before we can kind of?
Nope, it's good. I don't like it as much as my favorite Ott records, but I think the fact that it is more upbeat and breezy really helps it because it makes it feel a little less like high stakes compared to some of the Ott records.
Exactly. Again, I'm just glad to hear Tim Darcy again. I think he's one of the most underrated frontmen in rock music today. So I'm glad that there's more music from him out there. But next, again, this is a little less Matty core, but I think it rides the line. The new Toro Y Moi record, Mahal. I don't have a whole lot to say. It's his best record to me since Boo Boo, and Boo Boo's still my favorite Toro record. But this feels like, I think the common thread point that I've had, I think a number of us have had, is that it feels like this is what 4 should have been. Like this feels like combining some of the more kind of what he was doing a little bit on like Outer Peace and some of his like like Underneath the Pine and what's the third record called again? I can't recall it off top.
I'm remembering the cover in my brain, but I'm not remembering the name of it. The third record is called Anything in Return.
Yeah, it feels like in some ways like kind of combining like some of the early stuff with this evolution that he was kind of going through with the more fun aspects of like Outer Peace and some of the more like emotional through lines of Boo Boo and some of the collaborations like the Flume collaboration we actually talked about on the podcast.
It really feels like the ultimate culmination of his career in kind of a way. Like it really does feel like it's stringing together so many of the different things that have worked about Toro in the past and putting it all into this record that has a really great flow. Like it's got the little kind of radio interstitial like staticky bits that like give it a nice kind of transition. And just I don't have a lot of interesting thoughts to say about this record, but just like probably the Drinking a Beer Outside album of the year. If you're going to do something along the lines of floating down a river, sitting on a porch, like any of those type activities in which you might be having a beer in a either seated or semi-seated situation, throw this album on. You're going to have a great time.
Yes, I highly agree. Again, a lot of good stuff. Magazine, great song. Last year, really good. I love last year's my favorite song on the record. It feels like in some ways like Toro kind of branching off from his collaboration with the Avalanches, If I Was a Folk Star, like really kind of branching off and be like, all right, like what if I like kind of did my if I evolved from this song, like it's really excellent.
Yeah, it's got
I kind of wish there's more of it.
A plunderphonic sort of vibe to it, along with going into the kind of psych rocky guitar stuff. And there's even a good unknown Mortal Orchestra feature on it, despite the fact that it doesn't have Colin's radio ready mix on it. You know, he still sounds pretty. he still sounds pretty good.
Listen. It's no Loveless, you know.
Exactly. Yeah.
But good record. I like it. This record, it feels like this is the work again. It's an ultimate culmination of, I think we were talking this with a Patreon supporter Delaney, where it feels like he's in a much happier place in his life. You really get
that vibe totally. Yeah, that was always the thing with those early Toro records.
Funny little buggy.
Is it was like you can tell the contrast between the kind of weird, sad undertones to his songwriting that would be juxtaposed with like the kind of chill wave funk. And this record feels like he's just like, yeah, I've kind of like figured my life out a little bit.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, Next
It's
record.
so cold in here. Somebody mentioned a word I think they shouldn't have, and now it's like freezing.
Here's a record from the guys that do not feel like they have their whole lives figured out. Particularly,
I'm gonna keep reading. I think I got another like 10 minutes in me.
Yeah,
of
no,
reading
we're gonna keep going. It's my turn now. New Joyce Manor record, 40 ounces to Fresno. I went long on Joyce Manor recently on Indieheads, the subreddit, for a piece on Of All Things I Will Soon Grow Tired.
Good piece.
Where I got into some thoughts about 40 ounces to Fresno on there. This is an okay record. In the general scheme of things, it's pretty decent. It's a good fun
very
time.
solid.
But in the Joyce Manor catalog, this is probably their worst record to date. It's pretty mid by their standards. There's still some good stuff here, but the sequencing is not great on it. And I think Joyce Manor has always had an issue with sequencing. Like even on as far back as self-titled, I would say the self-titled is it helps that the songs on self-titled are so goddamn good that bad sequencing doesn't get in the way. Or a case like Of All Things I'll Soon Grow Tired, where the album is just such a mess that like you can't really sequence that in a good way. So just let the mess out there and it works. Or Never Hungover Again, which could have had a horrible sequence job.
We talk about this all the time, that the original sequencing that Joyce Manor wanted to do, it would have ruined the album.
It would have
straight up.
But for Fresno, it's not the best sequence record. It's a record that like is very similar to Of All Things I'll Soon Grow Tired, that it's kind of initially built together with like scraps and like older songs and scraps of previous songs that didn't come out and like covers, and it feels like a record where like the thing is like I don't really know what to say to improve it, because I think what could have improved it, I think for one, the production, having the guy who produced Cody produce this one, not a good choice. I think like Cody helps that the songs on the really good stuff on Cody is really goddamn good, that like kind of iffy production like is like
doesn't really matter. Yeah.
But this is the case where like the songs are not as strong here, and the very clean cut power pop 90s alternative production really does not work for this record. I think like if this record took a much more scrappier approach, I think I would like it a lot more. But as it stands, it just doesn't. It's not the Joyce Manor. I'm not going to come back to it.
It's torn between whether it wants to be Of All Things 2 or whether it wants to be like very clean, streamlined, fun, late period Joyce Manor songs like them just trying to do, which $1 Million to Kill Me had a couple of those moments, but for the most part felt like a little bit more of a kind of mature and personal record from them, which is why this record feels so weird. You know what I mean? It feels like regression almost, even though I do like it. I will say my one I finally listened to this album today, which was a very easy album to catch up on. Literally, it was like 2 hours before this podcast. I was like, all right, I only have time to listen to the album like 5 times. But I actually listened twice, and I really like Souvenir as an opener, which I think I'm the only I'm the only person that loved it right away. Like I both think it's a great cover in that it's a very non-Joyce Manor-y song that immediately sounds like a Joyce Manor song once they interpret it. Like if you hadn't told me this was a cover, I wouldn't have guessed it. Which I think is a really good testament to like how they interpret it. And I also just think it's like a proper opener in a way that like it's a 3-minute long song because they didn't write it. So like I think that helps make it feel like a real like setting the table for the album, which then of course the album is just like it then proceeds to rush through basically every idea it has. And I like that Barry refuses to write songs longer than 2.5 minutes. Like I respect it.
It rocks.
But the problem is that when you only have 8 of them that you've written, and they're not all of a high enough level of quality, and they're not sequenced in a way that is particularly like striking, it just sort of feels like this album starts and then it comes on, and then you get to Secret Sisters and it's like it's over already. And obviously like all Joyce Manors have a kind of it's over already feeling because they're so short, but like this is the most pronounced, where even though Secret Sisters is a great closer and like one of the songs I like more on this record, it's so short in its own that you kind of get to it and you're like, wait, we're kind of done already. Like I think that Heated Swimming Pool is like so underrated for the way that song, like even at under 2 minutes, like feels like such a more kind of like, okay, we're winding things down, this is the end of the record feeling, whereas this record just kind of ends like mid-sentence.
Yeah, It's just it's like even one more song I think would have benefited the record like a lot.
I agree.
It's a very like
my two favorites
it's a weird
of the ones I like.
it feels like a transitional record where it's like, okay, we gotta get some of the stuff out of our system, but like it doesn't feel cathartic like those albums can feel sometimes. Like I don't know, it's a very weird record for me to talk about because I don't hate it. I don't hate it by any means. It's a solid record, but you know,
it's the kind of record where I'm much more excited to see them play these songs live than I am to really be listening to this album as an album a lot anymore. Like the two best songs on here, I think, are NBTSA and You're Not Famous Anymore. I think both of those are really fucking great. I think You're Not Famous Anymore is a classic Barry being a little catty bitch who lives for drama song.
Yes.
And we love that for Barry. And but overall this record is just like pretty solid. We got a couple more to talk about. We got to keep powering through so Matty can get to his show.
Again, we're okay. We're good on time. This is one that again we were talking earlier about Rose clocking some Matty core for me. This is one that I clocked
Matty
for
fucking
Jackie.
Nailed me. Bullseye, direct hit. Matty was like, "Hey Jackie, you probably should listen to this Just Mustard album." And I was like, "Who?"
Are we still going? I kind of just I got really distracted. I've been like reading this book for like 10 minutes straight.
Just keep reading your book.
We're gonna continue going into categories of music that Rose does not really care for, and that is shoegaze, baby. Awoo, wolf howl. Just Mustard are a Irish, I believe.
Yes.
They're from Ireland, and they are a shoegaze band that is very unique, I would say, as far as shoegaze bands go. They have a debut album from 2018 that I've since got back to, which is ironically called Wednesday, which I thought was very funny. But their new album is called Heart Under, and it comes a full 4 years after that record, and it's a little different in that it's a little less straightforward shoegazy, and it's a little and also the first record had two vocalists on it, mostly the vocalist that's on this one, but now it's just her. Like they've gotten rid of the other guy singing essentially. And this is just one of the coolest fucking records of the year in that it is not shoegaze in the typical construction you think of, where like the main attraction is the riffs and that it's all about like the guitar textures as like the thing that is like drowning these songs out, where the thing that strikes you immediately about this band is that the drums and the bass are like really front and center in the mix, and the guitar is mainly used for textural elements, which is what it does in shoegaze anyways, but not like riff texture elements. Like there are just all these swells and squalls of noise that are like forming like storm clouds around the edges of these songs, and it makes for such an incredible contrast with her voice that is so high and airy. Like it very much sounds like Kelly Lee Owens is the person that it immediately reminded me of. But then like contrasting that with just these nasty fucking tones that the guitarist is able to create. Like Seed especially is probably my favorite one on the record, and that is just like a filthy, disgusting track in the best possible way. But then it also has these more kind of atmospheric tracks like Blue Chalk that comes right after it that's really beautiful. There's an incredible closer track. I really like the opener. Like this whole thing just, it's really moody, really atmospheric, but like because the drums and bass are so front and center, it doesn't really feel washed out in the way shoegaze does. Like there's something very tense about this record, something very kind of like Predator on the prowl about it. And I think both this record and Wednesday, which I've been going back to that record a bunch since I've gotten Just Mustard pilled, both of their records, they're 2 for 2 so far. Like the first record, the opener of their first record, Boo, is one of the like sickest fucking like first album openers of all time. Like it's just so sick. And also Tainted and Feeded from that record are really, really great kind of shoegaze songs. But like that record is a little more straightforward in the shoegaze style, where this is clearly taking that into like more of a like distinct direction. Like there is no one else who makes music exactly like this. Like even like the other people that are releasing music this year and last year, like Midwife or Maria BC or like other Sargent House Flenser girlies. Like there are other artists that you can compare this to, and if you're a fan of those other artists, you will like this, but it is very much its own thing in a very satisfying way. And from the moment I heard this, I was just like, wait, how did someone else not think of this already? Because this is fucking genius. I love it. Great band. Yeah, just mustard.
Really good. I got not much to say. Again, not the biggest shoegaze guy, but this does it for me. So really good record. I recommend it. Next up, well, hey Rose, are you still reading? It's your turn. You're back. It's the new Angel Olsen record. It's the new Angel Olsen record, big time.
Hey, hello. Oh yes, Angel Olsen. Wow. I haven't listened to this one that much, honestly.
I've probably listened to it the most, actually.
So Angel Olsen, she's like no duds in the discography. I mean, actually, there's one.
We'll debate that in a second. Continue.
But like whatever. And anyway, like she's reliable, dependable, big indie artist at this point. You know how it is. Like I think.
Yeah, bro, she's gay now.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's the important thing. Is like there's like 10 albums worth of backstory on this.
Yes.
It's insane. Like, just go read one of the press releases. I don't think
she lived like 5 years worth of life in like 6 months. Is essentially what happened to Angel Olsen.
Yeah, and like she came back and she went with her most like country tinged album to date. That's like how all the marketing has gone. But really, it's just like, oh hey, it's My Woman again. But like, there's some slide guitars on it, and like I don't mind that, like. But at the end of the day, I have always preferred like more like the kind of weirder nooks and crannies of her songwriting rather than just like the thing that she can do 20 of. Like she can write 20 albums like My Woman. I would argue she cannot write 20 albums like Halfway Home or All Mirrors. Those are unique records in her catalog, and those are my favorites as a result.
I am of the opposite opinion, which is that I would like her to write 20 albums like My Woman, because My Woman, besides, I really like Burn Your Fire for No Witness. I love that one.
I still haven't been sold on that one. That one, I'm just like, it's fine, I guess.
That one is what I like about that one. What has failed to click with me with Halfway Home, but that's just my own personal taste. I really loved My Woman at the time. I never quite clicked with it the way that other people did, but over time, it just continued to grow on me more and more. And even though I really did not like All Mirrors and I did not care for A Whole New Mess either, which like at first I thought that my problem with All Mirrors was the John Congleton of it all, which I think is part of the problem. But then I heard the A Whole New Mess versions of them and I'm like, well, didn't fix it. So
the songs aren't good. I'll come out and say it again. All Mirrors is a bad record because like,
I wouldn't say bad. I'm not quite that harsh on it, but I agree. The songs aren't good.
Like, Rich Rose, I'm sorry we're saying this, but just, I guess, gotta get it out there. Like, I fucking love Burn Your Fire for No Witness. I love My Woman. Those are two of my favorite records of all time. All Mirrors is just like, the songs just aren't there. And I think Big Time is getting back. It's climbing its way back to those kind of peak eras for me, but I don't think it's all the way there. There's some good stuff in this record. I think it's a step in the right direction, but like, for a record that has such an emotional backstory between kind of coming out as gay and her adoptive parents passing away, it doesn't quite which again, this might sound mean and catty, which I apologize, but it's just like for that backstory, it's just not hitting like it should for me. But maybe I need to spend more time with that.
Okay, I get that. My two things that I will just say before we kind of move on from this, I disagree in that this is my favorite Angel Olsen album ever. This is the most I've ever connected with her for sure. Now I probably could go back to My Woman now and probably be like, okay, maybe My Woman is a better record now.
I think my main problem with this record is just like it is way more content than I was expecting for the most part, than like the really sad ones about
that is what I like about it. Like that.
It's not that I don't like that. It's just I can't connect to it right now.
No. I don't think content is the right word, because like there's a lot of.
Oh yeah, no. I mean, like,
No.
I'm referring to like the stuff that like where she's specifically writing about, like connecting with another person and her identity. I'm just not in that space like right now.
Okay,
Or like
that's totally fair. But
exactly,
like,
that's what I'm saying. Is like I don't think it's bad. I just can't relate
disagreeing with
to it
Matty's
at
point,
all.
not your point. What I was disagreeing with is that this album doesn't hit because it isn't. I get what you mean in that I was also expecting it to be like, oh my god, I'm gonna listen to this album and I'm gonna actually die. Like, especially because obviously what happened to me is not what happened to Angel Olsen. Like, I have both of my parents and I'm very lucky to have both of my parents, but I came out to my parents as trans literally days before the pandemic happened, which is bad timing, let me tell you. Don't do that if you're thinking about coming out to your parents as transgender before a global pandemic is about to strike, unbeknownst to you. Don't recommend it. But like, I think that what I like so much about this record is that it is not Sufjan Stevens, Carrie and Lowell, even though I love Carrie and Lowell. Like, it is not.
I don't like the record either.
But like, it is not like staring into the black void of grief and like trying to make sense of it, even though I do think that it is dealing with those emotions in very interesting ways and how she's trying to navigate this weird, complex mix of emotions where she's like, I'm coming into my own as who I am as a person and like blossoming into myself at the same time that I'm having to mourn this life and these people in my life that I'm leaving behind. And the bittersweetness of that is something that is 100% hitting me exactly in my life right now, where it's like things, Jackie stocks are up while all other stocks, both economic and just like the world, all other stocks are down. So like, it's this kind of weird sort of conflicting feeling of just like, what does it mean to find happiness if everything else is kind of falling apart around it? And just kind of the way she sort of retreats into, like you said, like the connections she's able to make now that she's more authentically herself. And I really just love this record. I love, even though as many people were a little disappointed in that it wasn't as country as they were kind of hoping it were, my very mean comment that I said in the Discord was that you're all a bunch of hicks. This is exactly the right amount of country. It's just a dash. It's just the right amount of seasoning on the dish.
Could use more.
I think it would have been fine if it had been more like if it had been a Yeehaw album.
See,
I would have enjoyed it.
I guess
I wasn't.
Back to my original point, which is like, I want her to do more, lean more into a thing instead of adding flavors to the stock Angel Olsen experience.
Yes, I agree with that. Although I think the flavors that she added to the stock Angel Olsen experience made this for me the best Angel Olsen experience, because I do think the core, like what she does best, like you're describing what My Woman is, that is, I think, what is the most appealing about her. And every time she takes a dramatic step off of that path is when I tend to not like it. So we're just very different in how we approach Angel Olsen's music. But
exactly.
What I want out of it,
more about it later this week.
This gives me everything I wanted out of Angel Olsen album. Also, the closer is fucking fantastic. Chasing the Sun.
Oh yeah, that's great. Like I don't think the songs are bad. Like
the opening and closing are pretty good. Again, I have a running playlist. Matty Good songs. I'll post it in the description because it's I'm the one who's putting this goddamn podcast together. I deserved a little self plug there. Both those tracks are my Matty Good songs playlist this year. Both really good tracks.
All right. Let's move on.
Okay. We should.
We can be brief on some of these.
Yeah, these again. There's two of these that we can probably breeze through. One. Well, yeah.
I want to talk I just want to know the last one, but like the other two we can breeze.
Yeah. One of these. The parenthesis says Rose and Matty only. Jackie gets put on mute for this.
And I'm keeping my word. I literally will not even say anything.
Which again, we'll recommend. Next record. Soccer Mommy. Sometimes Forever. It's a Soccer Mommy album produced by 106 Point Never.
And finally, she's back. She has beaten the wallpaper allegations. It's happened.
She did.
I liked Collection a lot when that was out. I was like, oh, this is really promising. Can't wait to see what this does. Then the big Arrival. Like I can't even remember the title. Like that's how much I don't.
Color Theory.
No, the one before that.
Clean.
Clean, yeah. Clean came out. I was just like, oh my god, no, this is like so boring.
Oh, that's just a bad take. That album fucking rocks.
I don't like Clean, and like I think that album was made even worse for me because I had a roommate who like would loop songs like over and over and over, and I had to hear Your Dog like 20 times to the point where it's just like I'm sick of this song.
I could listen to Your Dog 500 times. That's one of the best
you don't
indie rock
understand.
songs.
It was like that and like Courtney Barnett songs like over and over.
I can now I understand. Continue.
Yeah, it was just like that over and over and over. It drove me like half insane.
But Your Dog is still the best song she's ever written.
It drove me crazy. I was like, oh, we're never getting her back. After Color Theory, I straight up gave up. I was like, we're not getting her back, are we? We're just, and this is like she's back. She's leaning into like a kind of blearier shoegaze stuff that I think has always suited her a little bit better. Like, just like her songwriting works best in like textural spaces rather than like trying to write like a big chorus or anything. And like Dan Lopatin, for better or worse, seems to have a very good understanding of that kind of rock music where like it's vibes first over everything. And this is why I want to see him produce for an actual shoegaze band, because I think he would kill it.
I agree that he would absolutely kill it. Also, my other big take about this record is immediately after hearing it, I was like, God damn, we need to get Daniel in the studio with Hatchie immediately. Daniel is the person that can fix the great Hatchie problem and finally get us a Hatchie album that's as good front to back as her best songs are. And yeah, I like this Soccer Mommy album quite a bit. I think with Matty, when you heard this record early because you worked this radio, like you kind of warned us, like don't let Unholy Affliction confuse you. This sounds a lot more like what you're expecting than it sounds like a radical left turn. But I actually, having heard the record, really like that OPN doesn't butt his head in too much, like too forcefully. Like
he doesn't do that Kramer thing.
Exactly. He doesn't jump into the room like Kramer and say, "All right, now time for a Jock Jam infomercial interlude." Like he very much lets Sophie like be the lead voice and just step out of the way and let her cook. And also like, but like you're saying, like is just honing. Like I liked Color Theory fine. It's just an album that kind of suffers from the memory hole that it was released right before the pandemic, but also like I think that's now clearly like a real transitional record where it's like clearly she was wanting to dabble into some of these more atmospheric electronic styles, but just didn't really have the right people with her to do it, and now she does. Like, and Dan is just a really great foil for her to work off of. And it just rocks. I think this is a really, really great, like, Shotgun is an incredible single.
Yeah, great song. One of the best songs this year.
Unholy Affliction is a perfect, like, left turn second single that sounds like King of Limbs. It's so fucking sick. And then you've got, like, really great tracks like the opener Bones, which is like one of the most shoegazy songs on the record. I like some of the even quieter stuff. Like I like New Demo, and I like the closing track Still, which is one of the slower songs, is really great. Like,
what's the one?
Usually I only like the more upbeat kind of poppy songs like Your Dog on a Soccer Mommy album and don't care as much for
I think Don't Ask Me is like far and away the highlight here. Like
Don't Ask Me is really good.
Yeah, I think it perfectly blends that production stuff with like her actual ability to just write a song.
Hell yeah. But yeah, good record overall. Highly recommend it. Definitely the best Soccer Mommy album, I would say.
You can introduce this next one and then no more words.
I wrote a cover profile about this person. Perhaps you've heard of it. Perhaps if you know me at all, or you're in the Discord, or you follow me on Twitter, you've heard me not shutting the fuck up about this for many weeks. Go read my profile. I will now shut the fuck up. This is Ethel Cain, Preacher's Daughter. Rose and Matty, take it away.
I'll start. I like this record quite a bit. It's a really good record. I don't have much to say. Again, read what Jackie has said about this record. Either through the paper magazine profile or through the great piece that she did on Merry-Go-Round magazine. But in short, Ethel Cain is one of the most exciting new artists out there. Even if I'm not fully in on the train like Jackie is, I think Ethel, or well, I guess Hayden is more accurate, is already emerging as one of our great new songwriters for being able to put you into like a very unique, special world where most artists who are going to put out a record that's like an hour and 15 minutes long, I'm like, fuck you. What the fuck are you doing? This album warrants it. It very much is like, it is a concept record. It is telling a story. It is immersing you in a very unique world. I like the record quite a bit. I need to go back to it a bit more. I very much recommend it. There's some great tracks on here. Although my favorite is the most H-word song of them all, Gibson Girl. That song is so H-word, but I love it a lot as a recently single person. So
Okay, so like,
go ahead.
the comparison points that were thrown at this, the like 4 fans of in chat, I saw the words slowcore and Lana Del Rey thrown around. I just immediately went, okay, yeah, that's nice. You all enjoy this, and like I was correct. I tried it twice. I gave 2 tries, 2 very honest tries, and I was just like, yeah, this is like so decidedly not for me. I appreciate, like, having read some, like Jackie stuff and then like a couple other things. I'm like, I appreciate the mindset. This is someone who I would like to hang out with as a person, like, because they have a lot of thoughts about living in the South that I very much vibe with.
As we said in Discord the other day, when she posted the picture in the camouflage overalls with the furry gray cat, she did copy your whole fucking flow. Like if Hayden was 6'4", she would be fully infringing upon your copyright territory.
It's really like, somebody who I appreciate the mindset of a lot, but just like makes music that I could not be less interested in.
Whereas Hayden makes music that is literally pulled out of my brain because we have the exact same taste in slowcore and pop music, and yes, record rules. Matty, you don't have to say that you're not as into it as me, because that applies to literally most people on planet Earth.
That's true. I recommend this one.
Your only competition is the Twinks.
Yeah,
my only competition is the deranged stan community of gay men who love Ethel Cain, and now many of them follow me. Hello, Twinks. Thank you for your support.
Again, don't let the length. Do not let the length of this record scare you off. It's worth it. It's definitely worth a try. It's definitely one that's going to be hard to revisit because of the length, but I think it gives you enough on like a first or second listen where you're like, okay, like I get it. I'm with it,
And as the resident expert, as I've said a couple of times, I do listen to this album from start to finish and find that it is completely engrossing the whole way. And like,
exactly,
especially if you're on a road trip or something, like it's fucking ideal for that sort of environment. However, when I'm in a rush or when I'm just wanting to get my fix, like this album works really well as a kind of choose your own adventure where it's like, okay, I'll listen to the first 2 tracks and then I'm going to skip ahead. And this time I'm just going to do the kind of country leaning one. I'm just going to do Hard Times and Thoroughfare. And I'm going to skip Gibson Girl and Ptolemy and go right back into the last section. Or maybe one time I'll be like, I'm just going to do the kind of Family Tree, Western Winds, Gibson Girl, Ptolemy type straight. Like, this album feels very cohesive, but I also can just go to different sections of it and get my little fix. Like sometimes I just start the record at televangelism and just listen to the very end part of the record. I do that when I want to cry really hard. But like in general, like this is an album that like I can appreciate literally every song on here as a standalone statement, but then as a complete cohesive record, it's one of the best albums I've ever heard in my entire life. Shouts out to Ethel Cain. Shouts out.
There we go. And then Rose. This is the last one on the list. Rose, go for it.
This is another top 5er for the year. This and MJ Lenderman are like my big 2 of this particular episode, I guess. So new one from They Hate Change. I believe their debut on Secretly Group. Like, oh my god, this is just really good rap record. It's like the first time I've heard something and I want to call it like post Big Fish theory.
I would 100% agree with that.
Now you say that, I'm like, oh, it connected some dots. I'm like, oh shit, of course, that's like absolutely right.
This feels very much in the same vein as that, even though it's doing a different thing in a lot of respects. Like, I think this is a very, very talented duo who seems to very much have their whole aesthetic together. It's got hints of like all the like classic Southern rap stuff, and then of course like just crazy break beats and techno stuff. It's really super cool aesthetically and I've just been kind of obsessed with it. Like,
yeah, no, totally. Like
very, very smartly produced record.
The Pitchfork review is really great. Like saying that like this is an album by and for music nerds, but like that is specifically like so that they're so perfectly situated, like you're saying, where not only do they have this knowledge of Southern rap music, but then also like the influence of Florida rap, and particularly like going back to like Two Dive Crew type Miami bass stuff, and how like rap music and electronic music have always been intertwined in Florida, but then how this album takes that and reflects it through the prism of much more modern electronic styles and through a lot of genres that come from other parts of the country, and fusing that all together with like, I hear a lot of Outkast in their flows a lot of the time. Like that's obviously like a very big influence for them. But then like, as I said, like fusing that with a lot of it's just a really fucking great record. Like so fun. So there's a artist featured on this album named DJ Gazy. What else do you want?
I think it's very important to note that this is like also just like an extreme, like a very queer rap record. Like one of the two members of the group is like non-binary, and like they have a whole song on there called "I Hate My Voice," which is just like about learning to embrace one's queer identity while also being able to like talk your shit.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. Yes. This is a really great record. I highly recommend checking out the 666 Central Ave EP that they did in 2020. If you haven't, that's really good. Stunt Cams is the song that like put them on my radar. I'm trying to find it. I can't. I'm pretty sure they had a song called Black Daft Punk. I'm pretty sure. I want to say I might be misremembering that or thinking of someone else, but I also remember that track. Mm-hmm. I'm gonna look it up because it's not on Spotify.
Yeah, good. Again, very good rap record. A lot of, again, fun.
Well, they had lyrics that referred to.
Oh yeah, no, exactly. That's what I'm thinking of. On Stunt Cams, they say we're the Black Daft Punk.
Yeah. Good also, shouts out to breakbeats. Breakbeats are so cool.
I mean, we learned this with RX Nephew. More people rapping on breakbeats,
yes,
please,
exactly.
please,
and more people just shouting things like "I want to do more drugs" over.
Yes,
and over.
that too.
Let me correct myself. The lyric from Stunt Cams is "The Black Ramones, Daft Punk in the flesh, we might be."
Okay. Yeah. Well then, that's it. Unless we had any final thoughts, there might be. I think there's like a record. I forgot to shout the Horse Jumper of Love record that came out this year. Natural Part.
Listen, I'm sorry in advance, but like Q3 is just going to be like me just being a sicko the entire time.
There's a big
like,
Q. Yeah. I will
like
say
the next quarter is where all the just like freak stuff.
I mean,
comes
I've already
in. Like,
I've got some shit that I'm hyped up about from Q3 that we can
yeah. There's some stuff I have advances for. They're really
so
awesome.
much about Chat Pile.
Hell yeah.
The new phony record again. I'm gonna just again some Q3 warnings, some Q3 stuff to keep an eye out for. The new phony album that's coming out the end of July is really fucking great. The Jock Shop album that's coming out, I think in like September. Pretty good record. Can't say much about it, but it's really goddamn good. And then I'll shout out this record for actually it's not been officially announced yet, so I'll keep a low profile, but it's a record that if you're in our Discord, Jackie will not shut up about once it gets announced. So
yes, that is correct. However, I will just shout out a couple of things that are already out from quarter 3 that you should keep on the radar as things that I will definitely talk about for the quarter 3 wrap up. One of those is the Mama album, which I'm already fucking addicted to. Mama season approaches. The Camp Trash album, which just came out. Shout out to friend of the podcast, Keegan. Camp Trash is a real band, and I'm in it, and the record is really great. I love it. And then the last thing is the new Greet Death EP is fucking fantastic. I cannot stop listening. I've been hovering around the Greet Death pill for a long time, despite it being something it seems like I should be aggressively into, and never got quite all the way on board. And then all they had to do was make it a little more slowcore and add just a tiny dash of country on top, and baby, we got ourselves a stew going. Great Death, New Hell, incredible. Greet Death, New Hell, incredible EP.
Oh yeah, I also want to throw out some Q1 stuff that I only just now got to because I've been crawling through the quietest list. ECHT by La Colonie de Vacances. That was horrible, absolutely butchered. Redefines by BFTT. BFTT and Phase Corrected by Shit and Shine. Those are like three just good.
The
one of them,
BFTT record is awesome. Yes,
Yeah,
I've had a lot of my electronic friends recommend that to me, and I finally got around to it.
British guy who thinks he's an alien bleep bloops for the BFTT. La Colonie is a really good, just scrunky noise rock, math rock assembly stuff, and then Shit and Shine is...
I knew I was forgetting something. The two things we forgot are the Flasher album and the Perfume Genius album, which are both good.
Those are solid, but I have absolutely nothing to say about
Nothing to say either.
The Flasher album, I was just going to say that I was a little worried given the Pitchfork review, and I was worried that we had another Priest situation on our hands where it's like, oh no, the bassist of this post-punk band leaves and they're just not going to sound the same anymore, and we're going to have to deal with that. But I think
that's pretty solid.
I think Flasher has handled the transition out of their previous lineup way better than Priest did. This is a way better album than Seduction of Kansas.
Yeah.
Well, now Seduction of Kansas is pretty good. I think you all have underestimated.
Rose, you're too Congos
and
pilled.
Okay, we can't even get into it.
We can't even get into it.
We can't even get into it.
Congos and pilled.
Again, thank you everybody for listening to this podcast. Next week, the schedule's gonna be a little weird next week. I'm not sure when the next one will be out because we are gonna be at the Pitchfork Music Festival. So we're gonna try to get a podcast out hopefully on probably within early on the weekend. We'll probably just do a video pod. And we'll have some bonus content coming out during then. I'm fucking excited for Pitchfork Fest. I'm so goddamn excited. I cannot believe that it's a week away. It's nuts. So, well, hopefully, some of our listeners, hey, as I said last week, if you see us there, hey, come through, say hi. We'd love to see you. We'd love to hang out, drink some Japanese breakfast beers, all that jazz. This podcast is already going very long. We will see you all next week. And then we have our final episode of Best New Pod coming out on Wednesday, or not the final episode of the season coming out on Wednesday before bonus stuff and all that jazz. All right, that's it. Bye-bye, everybody.